The backstroke pull is absolutely critical for swimming fast backstroke. And in this video, I'm going to show you my favorite strategies to develop an amazing one. Hi everyone, Andrew here, helping you help your swimmers get faster. The backstroke pull is absolutely critical. We're going to explore why that's the case. We're going to go over the key skills that swimmers need to develop in order to have a great backstroke pull. We're going to check out what a great backstroke pull looks like as demonstrated by an Olympic champion. We're going to go over the challenges of developing a backstroke pull, and then we're going to talk solutions. And finally, we'll look at some sets that you can use either right away or as inspiration in order to help your swimmers develop a great backstroke pull. Let's get started. So why does the pull matter in backstroke? Well, simply enough, most of the propulsion is coming from the upper body. Swimmers can create a lot of speed without the legs. You throw a pull buoy on them, you take away the legs, most swimmers can go pretty fast without a strong kick. However, if you just have them kick on their back, they're not going to create nearly as much speed, and so it's the upper body that's really driving the process in terms of creating speed. Just as importantly, they can create a lot more speed for a lot less effort. The arms tend to be a lot more resilient, and swimmers are much better able to sustain the speed that they can create with their upper body. So the more swimmers can use their upper body to create speed, the more effective they're going to be and the more consistent they're going to be. And of course, there's a direct relationship between propulsion and speed. The more propulsion swimmers can create, the faster they can go. So more propulsion is better. So the more effective the pull is, the faster swimmers are going to be able to go. And as that's ultimately the name of the game, we want to improve their pulls as much as possible so that they can swim as fast as possible. So what is an effective backstroke pull? What do swimmers need to do in order to create a lot of speed, a lot of propulsion with their upper body? Objective number one is create a big surface area. So if they're just pulling with their hand, they're not going to be nearly as fast as if they can pull with their whole arm. They can get the forearm facing backwards. They can get the upper arm in on the action. Every little bit matters, and the more that swimmers can use their entire arm, the more water they can move with each stroke. The more water they can move with each stroke, the faster they're going to go. And just as important as a big surface area, it's important to have a big range of motion. So if they can keep their whole arm facing backwards for 3 inches, that's going to be a whole lot less effective than if they can keep their whole arm facing backwards for 2 feet. The more range of motion that they can execute a great pull over, the more water they're going to be able to move for a longer period of time, and that means they're going to be able to go faster. So they got to get the arm facing backwards early, and they need to try to hold that position throughout the entire pull. The more effective they can be, the faster they're going to go. And finally, it's not just the positions they create, it's what they can do in those positions that is just as important. If they want to maintain pressure on the water, if they want to maintain propulsion, they have to accelerate the arm too. So it has to move faster throughout the stroke. It's not just about the arm speed, it's about the change in arm speed that matters as well. So they got to start relatively slow and they have to finish fast. And the better they can do that, the more effective they can be, the more pressure they'll create on the water, and the more propulsion they're going to create, the faster they're going to swim. So if we take a look at this swimmer here, what we're going to see is he does a really good job of getting that whole arm facing back right there. And that's going to create a huge surface area he can use to move a lot of water. And just as importantly, watch how long that surface area is facing backwards. So all the way to there, he's moving water backwards, and he's doing so with a big surface area. So big setup here, he's got a big hook, and then all the way through, he's holding that position, and he's moving water backwards throughout the entire stroke. So that's what's going to create a lot of propulsion, is getting in those positions early and then moving water backwards. And so we've got another swimmer here, setting it up, big surface area, and then pulling straight back all the way through down to the hip. So again, really big hook, big surface area, holding it all the way through, and then accelerating through that pull as well. So right there, you can see the hand speed pick up, and he really throws it back through the back of the stroke. Those are the key skills. Not super complicated, but not particularly easy to do. So what's the challenge? The first challenge is that they're on their back. So even though the principles are relatively similar to the other strokes where the swimmers are on their stomach, being on their back changes everything. It changes what they can see, and because they're on their back and they still have to get their arm in the water in order to create propulsion, the anatomy of the shoulder is going to limit them in different ways as compared to when they were on their stomach. And so swimmers are used to seeing what their arms are doing, And for swimmers that are really visual, which is a lot of humans, that's how we kind of move through the world is with our eyes, that can produce a unique challenge because they're used to being able to see and they're not as reliant on what they can feel. And so because they can't see, because they can't feel, they can't really get in those positions as easily, and they can struggle to do so really effectively. A lot of swimmers will subconsciously correct their actions when they see them. It's not an option when they're on their back. They can't make that happen. Secondly, from an anatomical perspective, the arm doesn't like to go behind the body. And that makes it a lot difficult to get the arm in the water oriented in a way that allows swimmers to create propulsion. It becomes a much more unnatural movement, whereas in freestyle, for example, you just put the hand right in front of your body and then you can pull. The arm is going to have to be kind of behind the body, and that's a much more difficult position for a lot of swimmers to get in, and it's not as comfortable, it's not as normal, it's not as natural, so they have to figure out how to do that. And a key aspect of that is rotation timing. And if they mess up the rotation timing, it's going to be really difficult to execute a great. So there's a couple added challenges that come with being on the back that make it even more difficult to execute a great backstroke pull as compared to executing a great freestyle, butterfly, or breaststroke pull, which is difficult in and of itself. Now, when it comes to solutions, we have to help swimmers figure out how to feel the most effective positions and how to learn how to create force in those positions. We have to help them understand how to create a big surface area, how to hold that surface area, and how to accelerate the arm. And we have to help them figure out how to do that without being able to see it, and how to do that on their back so that they can be in the right positions at the right time to create a lot of propulsion. So just like with all the other strokes, we have to help them learn how to hold more water. We just have to figure out how to do that on their back and within the context of backstroke swimming. So one of the simplest ways to introduce these ideas is side wall pulls. So they're going to be next to the wall, they're going to be facing it with their side, they're going to put their arm in the deck, and they're just going to press straight down. And so that's going to allow them to feel the basic position of the forearm, how to position it, and they're also going to learn how to apply pressure in that position. And so you can move their arm back and forth so that they can find the strongest place for them. And that's going to be a great way to introduce the concepts of, hey, these are the positions you need to be in, and hey, here's how you apply pressure into the water when you're pulling with backstroke. And so if swimmers have no idea what it should feel like, what they should be doing, it's a great way to help them understand, and it's super practical, it's really easy, it's really simple, they can't mess it up, and you can do it with any swimmer in any location, provided you have a pool, and if you're having swim practice, you have a pool. And rather than just doing this by itself, this tends to work really well when paired with any other swimming activity. So you just do 5 seconds, 10 seconds, a nice squeeze in between repetitions that helps them set up and feel what they're going to try to feel. And then you have them do whatever swimming you're going to have them do and allow them to feel those skills before they try to execute it. It gives them a better chance of making that happen when they actually do their swimming. So as I said, this is super simple. You're just going to be in that position. You can just have them hang out. So you can move the arm forward, backwards. You can move it further across the deck. You can move it closer to the body. You can just let him feel different positions. But regardless, he's going to have his whole forearm facing backwards, pressing into the ground. And so that's going to be the position he wants to create. And it's going to be a place where he can learn how to create pressure through the whole arm as opposed to just the hand. And so those are two really important skills: the position and then the application of force. And we can help swimmers get a basic idea of what they need to do in a very simple way that allows them to feel what they need to feel, and we can easily move them around, correct them, so that they can get a better understanding of what they need to do. Next up is side pull, and the goal here is to help them learn how to create that same position for as long as possible, create pressure, and then kind of pull straight back. And so we're really going to simplify the stroke. We're going to take out the rotation, we're going to take out the recoveries, and we're going to make it as easy as possible to execute effective skills so that swimmers can get the idea, they can get the understanding. We'll build off that side wall pull and then transition into some actual swimming where they can feel the same concepts. And the goal here is get a big surface area as early in the stroke as possible and move it over a long distance as long as possible. So they're trying to create a big hook, and then they're moving a lot of water with that hook for as long as they can. And it lets them feel what it's like to move a ton of water when they're already in a backstroke-like position. So if you watch here, it's super simple. He's just going to set up the stroke, he's not going to rotate, and he's just going to pull straight back. And so if you watch here, you can see he's got that same whole forearm. It's way up by his head, and he's going to go from there and pull it straight back. So he's going to work on getting a really great setup of the stroke right there, And then he's also going to have the ability to really focus on maintaining that position for as long as possible. And as you can see, he's going to be accelerating the pull right there, and you can see his body kind of move forward too. So it's all about getting in the right positions, holding those positions, and accelerating through those positions in a very simple context that, again, allows them to feel what it's like to hold a ton of water on backstroke. And then once they can feel it, we can start to add the other components and then build on them. Our next strategy is going to be to isolate the arms. And so the backstroke pull responds very well to isolation. You take away the legs, good things seem to happen. And so the reason is swimmers have to create propulsion with their upper body if they want to move forwards. They don't have a choice. They can't use the legs to save them, so they got to be good with the arms in order to create speed, in order to create forward progress. And this is particularly effective when combined with performance expectations. We'll talk about that in a minute. But if you add speed, you add stroke count, you ask them to perform with only the arms, it's going to be really effective at helping them learn how to use the arms, especially when they have an understanding of what they need to do from the sidewall pull and the side pull. So if you have them throw a buoy on, there's going to be some isolation. It's going to be more challenging. It's a great starting point. But if you add a band and a buoy, it's going to be even more difficult. And then if you take the buoy away and just use the band, it's going to be even more difficult. So you can scale the challenge based upon how you isolate the arms. But in every case, we're asking swimmers to find a way to perform with just the upper body. And the only way that's going to happen is if they can learn to create more propulsion. So we're putting them in positions where they have to figure it out. They have to be successful. It means they're improving with their pull. The more they improve with their pull, the faster they have the potential to be able to go. Next strategy is using different hand postures. So if we can change how swimmers interact with the water with their hands, we can influence the surface area they create and their ability to feel the positions they need to create and how to apply pressure from those positions throughout the entire stroke. So we encourage them to use the forearm more effectively. Like I talked about earlier, it's about using the whole arm as much as possible. A lot of swimmers just rely on the hands, and if they can use the hands and the forearms, they're going to be able to move more water. And we can help them learn how to build pressure sensitivity so that they can learn how to apply pressure more effectively, how to maintain pressure more effectively, and that's also going to give them better feedback as to when they lose the right positions. If they've got great pressure on the forearm, all of a sudden they lose it, and they can't tell that, they're not going to be able to fix that over time. So the more they can learn how to feel the effectiveness of their pulling, the better they're going to be able to make the adjustments that are critical for creating a lot of propulsion. So we can use tons of different positions here. We can go closed fist, we can go okay hands, we can go horns, we can go single finger, we can go double fingers. When it comes to paddles, they can hold the paddle upside down like so. They can pinch the paddle. They can go one paddle at a time. Those are all strategies that are going to help them learn how to move more water. Those different postures all have slightly different effects, but those effects all add up to more effective propulsion. And so rather than just using one or two of your favorites, by using a variety of different postures, by using a variety of different hand positions, and then contrasting those hand positions, so maybe you go one hand closed, one hand okay sign, or one hand closed, one hand upside down paddles, that's going to create another added challenge of learning because they have to create pressure on both sides of the body equally, even though they have different hand postures. So again, it's a great way to improve how they apply force, and it's a great way to improve their ability to feel the pressure they're creating on the water. That all adds up to more effective pulling and the creation of more propulsion. Next up is the use of resistance. And so we can use it to build skill, to develop better feedback, and to improve physical conditioning. So from a skill perspective, in order to move forwards, because of the added resistance, swimmers have to create more propulsion. But not only that, they have to learn how to create more effective propulsion. So if they're just creating a lot of propulsion, but it's moving from side to side, that's not going to help them move forward. That's not going to help them overcome the resistance. They have to create propulsion that is oriented backwards so that they can move forwards. And so the added resistance increases the challenge. It forces them to create more propulsion, and it forces them to create more effective propulsion. It also creates better feedback. And so it's easier to feel how much pressure is being created on the arm when there's that added resistance. And so if they're pulling through and all of a sudden they lose a lot of pressure, it's going to be easier to feel that when they have the resistance, and then they can make that change. So they want to have steady, constant pressure throughout the whole pull, indicating that they're staying in the right positions. And it's easier to feel that when they have that added resistance, which is one more benefit of using this strategy. It's also going to improve physical conditioning. So the added loads are going to help swimmers get stronger, develop more strength, And they're going to be better able to sustain that strength because they're doing a lot of work with the resistance. So they're going to be able to have the strength to create more propulsion, the strength to create more force, and the fitness, the endurance to actually sustain that force, sustain that amount of propulsion over time. So we're getting better skill development, and we're getting the physical conditioning to support that skill development as well. For those reasons, resistance training is a really effective tool whenever you're trying to help swimmers create more propulsion, but certainly when you're helping them learn how to create more propulsion in backstroke. The last strategy is to almost always ask for performance regardless of what activity you're doing. So you can use stroke counts, you can use stroke rates, you can use speed. They're all effective. You can use them in combination. You want to challenge them regardless of what they're doing. And there's two ways to approach it. So you can have them do the sensory activities so that they can feel what they're trying to accomplish and then try to perform with regular backstroke. So for instance, they go 425 side pull, and then they go 425s backstroke, minimize stroke count and time. So they set it up on the side pull, and then they're challenged to create a lot of propulsion so they can be long and fast during those 25s. Or you can have them perform during the sensory activities and the regular swimming. So for instance, they go 425 side pull. Now they've got a parachute, and they've got to minimize stroke count and time. So they're going to have to create a lot of propulsion there. And then we're going into backstroke with a buoy, minimize stroke count and time for those second 425s. So they're performing the whole way through. And in both cases, we're helping them feel the key skills, we're challenging those key skills, and then we're putting it all together. So for this set, is a little bit more skill driven. They're going to go 3 rounds through. They're going to go 425s, side pull with a buoy and upside down paddles. So they can't use their legs to create propulsion. And then the upside down paddles are going to encourage them to use the whole forearm. They're going to go 2 right, 2 left. The odds, they're going to minimize stroke count and time, try to be really long, and try to create some speed. And the evens, they're just going to go fast. Then they're going to go 850s backstroke with a buoy. They're going to descend in pairs at the same stroke count. So they're getting faster, but they can't take more strokes. So they have to create more propulsion in order to make that happen because they got the buoy in. They got to do that with the arms. The odds are closed fists, so they have to be better with the forearm. And then the evens, they've got their hands so they can put it all together. Each round, they're going to add a stroke on those 50s and try to go faster. The other thing we're going to add is before each repetition, they're going to go 5 seconds side wall pull to really feel the positions, feel the pressure, and that gives them a better awareness going into the side pull, going into the backstroke, so that they can start to feel the key skills and start to try to apply them when they actually do their swimming. This set has a little bit more of an endurance feel to it. They're going to go 3 rounds through the whole thing. The first segment, they're going to go a 25 and a 50 4 times. The 25 side pull, build to fast with a parachute. So they got to create speed on their side, and they have to overcome the resistance. Then the 50 is backstroke with a parachute. They've got to go second 25, fewer strokes. So they have to create more propulsion that second 25. They have to be more efficient, and they have to do that while overcoming the resistance of the parachute. Then they're going to go 3 100s backstroke with a band. So we're taking the legs completely out. The first 2, they're going to go single paddle backstroke, and they got to go the same stroke count each 25. So consistency is really important. And because the one hand is going to be a lot bigger than the other, they're going to have to figure out how to equalize the pressure on both sides to try to balance out the stroke. And that's going to challenge them, not so much on the paddle side, but on the non-paddle side to be really effective with that hand and that forearm to create a lot of propulsion. Third one, they're just going to go more of a speed focus, and they're just going to go for a big negative split. And then after the 3 100s, they're going to go 100 backstroke. It's going to be strong effort, and they got to go same stroke count each 25, try to put it all together. And the last piece of that, for those hundreds, both the 3 100s and the 1 100, they're trying to get faster each round. So they're trying to improve their performance each time. To do that, they got to create more propulsion. So we're challenging the skill in a lot of different ways, and it's solid work. So they build the fitness to hold those skills as they develop those skills. Last set, they're going to go 3 times through of 825s. The odds are always minimize stroke count and time. The evens are always fast. And what they're going to do is they're going to start off with a band. So legs are totally out, band and a buoy. Now they got a little bit of flotation back. Just the buoy, they can use their legs a touch, and then regular backstroke on the last 2. So the arms are definitely being challenged here, but we're slowly transitioning to regular backstroke. And each round is going to be performed a little bit differently. The first round is going to be upside down paddles with a parachute. So we're encouraging use of the forearm and we're challenging them to overcome the resistance. Round 2, they no longer have the upside down paddles, but they've got to create propulsion still to overcome the resistance of the parachute. And in the last round, they're just going to let it rip. They're just going to do it without any training aids in a normal backstroke situation. So we're challenging them to create speed, to create length. We're doing it with different training aids throughout the whole set. We're putting more pressure with the upside down paddles and the parachute on the skill that we want, and then we're giving them the chance to put it all together. The kick is absolutely critical in backstroke. And not only do swimmers have to improve their kick, they have to learn how to use their kick while actually swimming backstroke. And if your primary strategy to improve your swimmer's kick is just having them use a kickboard, you might be missing out on some opportunities to take their backstroke to the next level. We're going to explore everything backstroke kicking. We're going to go over why it's so important. We're going to go over what it is and what swimmers need to do to execute a great backstroke kick. We're going to see it in action. We're going to talk about the particular challenges of improving backstroke kicking, and then we're going to get into solutions and some sets that you can use as a starting point to help your swimmers improve their backstroke kick. Let's dive in and see what it's all about. So why does kicking matter? Great kicking plays 3 key roles in backstroke. First of all, kicking creates propulsion, and this is the role that most of us are familiar with. Strong and powerful kick helps swimmers move down the pool, can create a little bit more speed, which is really important. However, an important kick goes beyond that. Kicking can assist with rotation by torquing the hips, helping swimmers shift from side to side, and that can make it a lot easier to go from side to side. And in backstroke, there need to be violent switches from the right side to the left side and then back to the right side, and the kicking can help make that happen a lot smoother, a lot faster, and with a lot less effort. And that all adds up to faster swimming. Next, kicking helps maintain body position and alignment. By maintaining a really solid kick, it helps to keep the hips up at the surface. Just like in freestyle, flutter kicking in backstroke tends to raise the hips up in the water, and that can make it a lot easier for swimmers to move down the pool with less resistance. Along those lines, there's some pretty cool research that shows the beginning of the pull actually tends to sink the hips, and the kick can really serve to counteract that. And that's one more reason why an effective kick is so important. If you're not sold on the importance of kicking, just think about what can happen in the last quarter of a backstroke race when swimmers lose their legs. Everything falls apart. And it's not just because swimmers aren't creating as much propulsion. That certainly matters. It certainly has an impact. But all of a sudden, it becomes a lot more difficult to rotate from side to side. And it also becomes a lot more difficult to maintain body position. That means it's even more difficult to create propulsion. And that means everything just starts to fall apart. And so that's one reason where you can really see the stroke just completely disintegrate when the legs go. And so if swimmers can develop an effective kick and sustain that kick throughout their entire race, the whole thing is going to go a lot smoother and they're going to swim a whole lot faster. So what is an effective backstroke kick? Well, there needs to be a wave-like action to the kicking. So one of the big mistakes that swimmers make is they kick exclusively from the knees. The other mistake that swimmers make is they kick exclusively from the hips. So in one case, the knees are just bending back and forth and the hips aren't moving. The other case, the legs are almost completely locked and the knees aren't moving. And in both cases, that's going to really compromise the effectiveness of the kick in all 3 categories. It's going to make it more difficult to create propulsion. It's going to make it more difficult to shift the body from side to side. And it's going to make it more difficult to maintain body position. So what they actually want to do is they want to have a relatively straight kick on the recovery. So when they're kicking back behind the body, the up kick, that should be pretty straight. And then the kick's going to reverse, and it's going to be a bent knee kick that's moving forward in front of the body. So that creates a wave-like action. We'll take a look at it in a second. So the straight recovery and the bent kick really creates that whipping action, which creates a lot of propulsion and is really efficient. And a big part of that is having nice floppy ankles. That's the end of the whip. The floppier the ankle, the floppier the whip, and the more effective it is. And in almost all backstrokers, with rare exception, you're going to see a steady 6-beat kicking rhythm. Whereas in freestyle, you see a lot of different kicking patterns. In backstroke, it's almost always a steady 6-beat kick. It's consistent. It doesn't change when swimmers go fast. It doesn't change when swimmers go slow. Well, I'm not entirely sure what the reason for this is. My thought is that because the arms are moving almost in complete opposition, the kick is necessary to balance out the actions of the arms, and it has to be really steady. It has to be really consistent because the arms are moving consistently. The arms are moving steady. When you think about in freestyle, most times when swimmers use 2-beat kicks, it's when either there's no connection between the arms or the legs, which isn't what we want, or they're swimming at relatively slow speeds with almost a catch-up-like stroke. And that's when you see the 2-beat kick there because it balances out the arms, but there's periods where the arms aren't doing anything. When swimmers go fast, when they sprint, when the arms are moving more continuously, that's when you almost always see a 6-beat kick. And in backstroke, The arms are always moving continuously, and so you're going to see a 6-beat kicking rhythm in almost all cases. So let's check out some video and take a look at backstroke kicking in action. So with this swimmer, we're going to check out the wave-like kicking action with a straighter recovery and the more bent knee on the kick forward. So if we watch here, right here, that left leg is going to recover straight, and then it's going to whip and it's going to bend as it comes forward, and then the leg travels all the way through, and then it snaps through right there. Down recovery with the straight leg, and then whip through. Down recovery, straight leg, bent knee, whip through. Down recovery, straight leg, and then it whips through. And so you can see that it's not just the bending from the knees, it's not just moving from the hips, there's both action. But when those movements happen is really important. So the leg needs to recover relatively straight, the knee needs to bend as it whips forward and the leg comes through. So really key skill that's really important for having an effective kick. And so if swimmers are only focusing on one or the other, they're going to be missing out. So we'll take a look at another swimmer here. And what we'll pay attention to is the straighter recovery and the bent knee when kicking forward. Right here, you can see that the knee is bending, and then the leg is going to whip through right to the top, and then the leg comes straight back. Whips through, and then it comes straight back. He's on the side a little bit here, so whips through, and then straight back. That's probably the easiest one to see right there. So whip forward, and you can even see the foot kind of flip through at the end, and then straight back kick, whip forward, and then straight back kick. So really important, really critical skill. That whipping action right there again is going to create a ton of propulsion. It's going to be a lot more than if the swimmer just bends their knee. They have to have a straighter recovery. They want to bend the knee on the up kick, and that whipping action where it just kind of goes straight and then snaps forward is going to create a ton of propulsion. The one other aspect I want to draw attention to is the shift of the body from side to side. It's pretty subtle, but it can make a big difference. So if we watch, the right leg is going to kick right through there, and what you see is there's an immediate shift to the right side. So right here, boom, the kick finishes, and the body shifts down. And so what's happening there is by kicking forward with the leg, that's going to push the hip back, it's going to push the hip down, it's going to help him transition to the other side. So we'll take a look at it again one more time. Just with the angle, there aren't too many great cycles here, so let's just watch this one. Kick forward with the right leg, that pushes the right hip down and then shifts him to his right side. So it's going to be subtle. It's not as important as the effect of the pull. It's not as important as the effect of the arm recovery, but it does matter. So right there, the leg kicks up and the hip shifts down. So one more time, the right hip is up right now, kicks with the right leg, pushes the right hip down, and now he's on his right side. So backstroke kicking is a really important skill. It's a little bit more nuanced than we might otherwise suspect. There's got to be a wave-like action. It's got to be a steady, consistent kick. And if swimmers can do that, they're going to be locked in. So what's the challenge? Why is it difficult to help swimmers improve their kick and backstroke? The first challenge is that a lot of times swimmers have weak and undertrained muscles on the back of their legs. If they spend most of the time kicking on their stomach, which is what happens usually, they're not going to be as strong and they're not going to be as conditioned with the muscles on the back of the legs. And when kicking on the back, these muscles are going to get worked a lot more. And unfortunately, that's the position swimmers have to use when they're swimming backstroke. To make matters worse, a lot of times these issues are magnified on land with a lot of work done to strengthen the muscles on the front side of the legs and not quite as much for strengthening the muscles on the back side of the legs. So independent of the skill issue, we do have a strength and fitness issue, and that can take more time to iron out. It is something we have to deal with. Another challenge is learning how to kick from the hips and the knees. As we just saw, the recovery of the leg is going to be relatively straight, and then the kick itself is going to be relatively bent. Performing both those actions and legs moving at different times and with the rest of the stroke can be a lot for swimmers, and it can be a lot for them to figure out how to make it happen. So the next challenge is kicking with rhythm. It's not just about moving the legs as fast as possible. They have to be able to move the legs within the rhythm of the stroke. And so the other challenge related to that is kicking effectively while swimming. It doesn't really matter if they're the most effective backstroke kicker in the world when they're kicking on their back. If they can't use it when they swim, it doesn't really matter. The point is to be able to have an effective kick to create propulsion while they swim, to help them shift from side to side, and to help them maintain their position. Lastly, if you can do all these things, but they can't sustain it, they're going to be in trouble when it comes to races. They have to have the fitness, they have to have the skill to manage it throughout the entire race and to use the legs effectively throughout the entire race. If swimmers can learn these skills, they can develop the muscles on the back of the legs, they can kick with the knees and the hips, and they can kick while swimming and with rhythm throughout the entire race. They're going to be ready to go. So those are the challenges we have to overcome when trying to find solutions to improve backstroke kicking. So let's start overcoming those challenges. So we're going to go through 4 different ways, 4 different activities that you can use to help swimmers learn these skills. And then we're going to go through 2 different strategies that you can use with any of these activities to help swimmers get more out of what they're doing and to really challenge swimmers. We're going to cover vertical kick. We're going to cover kicking on the back. We're going to cover extreme stroke count swimming. And we're going to cover kick swim strategies. Then I'll show you how to use resistance and speed to challenge these activities to get more out of it to really help swimmers learn. Our first strategy is vertical kick. One of the reasons I like vertical kick is because it's different. And when things are different, it often provides swimmers with the opportunity to learn how to move differently. Specifically, vertical kicking can be really useful to help swimmers learn how to kick through the hips. A lot of swimmers are really knee-driven with their kick, and you can emphasize a straight leg kick with vertical kicking a lot easier than if you do it when kicking on a board or kicking on the back. You can literally have them focus on kicking with straight legs, and obviously that's not what they want to do when they're actually kicking backstroke, but by exaggerating the straight leg, it helps them feel what it's like to recover with a straight leg, and they're more likely to make it happen when they're actually swimming and they're actually kicking on their back. I found in most cases the knee bend tends to take care of itself, so if you put a little bit more emphasis on the straight leg kick, it's going to help them learn to recover with a straight leg. Another great benefit of vertical kicking is it helps to build fitness on both sides of the legs. Because of the vertical nature, there's not more or less pressure in either direction, and swimmers can really focus on kicking in both directions, and that can really train the muscles on the back of the legs, really build some fitness, and that's fitness that we need to help sustain a really effective kick. As I briefly mentioned, when you change the context, you change what swimmers experience. So going vertical provides a ton of novel insights. It feels different, it is different, and that lets them execute their skills in new ways. It's a lot easier to create change when they don't think they know how to kick. When they're on a board, they have an idea of how it should feel. When they're on their back, they have an idea of how it should feel. In vertical kicking, they probably don't, so it's going to be a lot easier to get the changes that we're looking for. So this swimmer here is executing vertical kick, and he's got more of a straight leg emphasis. He's really focusing on keeping things pretty tight, and you can see his knee is still going to bend. But if we watch slowly, he's kicking with a pretty straight leg recovery, and then he's bending the knee forward. So even when they try to focus on straight legs, they tend to just do a better job with the up kick or the kick behind the body, and they're still going to bend the knees on the way forward. So it's a really great way to help focus on kicking in both directions and to help develop a better up kick, a better straight leg kicking recovery. Next up is kicking on the back, and this allows swimmers to focus a little bit more on backstroke specific kicking. The basic kicking strategies are similar on the front and the back, but they are different. And in particular, it puts a lot more emphasis on the up kick, which is when the leg is moving behind the body, and it helps develop the muscles on the back of the leg more so than by kicking on the front. And so we get a different kick, so there's a different skill and there's a different level of fitness, and that is going to be a lot more specific to backstroke. So by doing a lot of the kicking on the back, you can improve those underdeveloped muscles, and swimmers can learn how to create speed on their back. There's lots of different ways to do it. You can have them go streamline. You can have them go arms by your side. You can do boat kick where they try to round the back and create almost a hull as they move through the water. That's a little bit more geared towards minimizing resistance, but you can use it here. So by training the kick on the back, you're getting a more specific stimulus, a more specific flutter kick stimulus that's ultimately going to help backstrokers improve at a faster rate, allow them to work on what they need to do in actual races. So here we got flutter kick on the back. It's exactly what it looks like. It's exactly what you think it is. This is in streamline. This is probably the option that I tend to use the most. So we're helping develop the kick specific to backstroke, and that's going to help them develop the specific skills, the specific fitness that they need to be successful. So as we talked about earlier, it doesn't really matter if they're a really great flutter kicker if they can't actually make it happen when they swim backstroke. So one of my favorite ways to bridge the gap between kicking and swimming is what I call extreme stroke count swimming. So they're going to swim with really low stroke counts, and I'm talking half of what they would normally take. So what this does is it bridges the gap between kicking and swimming. Because they're taking a lot less strokes, they have to use their legs to create speed. However, because they're still using their arms to some extent, and because there's more of an emphasis on the legs, it allows them to figure out how to use the legs within the arms as opposed to letting the legs be somewhat of an afterthought. And to really make it effective, I like to have swimmers build or descend so that they can learn how to change speed with the legs and still keep the flow, still keep the rhythm. And the way to make that most effective is don't let them change the stroke count. Make sure that they're using the legs to create speed as opposed to just picking up the stroke rate, taking more strokes, and using the arms to create speed. So if you have swimmers that are struggling to take what they're doing in their kicking and make it happen when they're swimming, this can be a really great strategy to help transition those skills from kicking to swimming. To make it happen, all you have to do is take whatever number of strokes that they normally take, cut it in half, and then start swimming. You can use more strokes, you can use less strokes. It doesn't really matter. The whole principle is to focus on learning how to use the legs to create speed in a backstroke-like swimming movement. The more strokes you give them, the more specific it is to swimming. The less strokes you give them, the more it's going to overload the legs. The final activity I like to use is kick-swim sets. So you alternate between kicking and swimming within repetitions or between repetitions. So you could go 10 50s, 25 kick, 25 swim, or you could go 10 100s, odd kick, odd swim. Doesn't really matter what the specifics are. It's the concept that's really important. They're going to be using the legs, and then they're going to try to swim with tired legs and figure out how to maintain their rhythm, maintain their kick, and maintain the effectiveness of all of it. So the idea is to learn how to use the legs while swimming with tired legs. They have to create an effective kick. They have to maintain an effective kick. And a lot of swimmers really struggle to make that leap. They struggle to use the kick well within the stroke. So by having them kick, they can better feel what their legs are doing, and then going right into the swim, they're more likely to integrate that into their swimming. And for swimmers that are already really good at using their kick within the rhythm of the stroke, it just adds another fitness component so that they have the challenge of maintaining great swimming while their legs are tired from the kick. And obviously, the more pressure you put on them in the kick and the swim, the more difficult it's going to be to maintain those legs because they're going to have more and more fatigue. So there's tons of different ways you can do this. You can do this with speed work. You can do this with endurance work. You can do it with race pace work. It doesn't really matter. As long as you have a purpose, as long as you have a goal, you can use this to help them learn how to use their legs more effectively and how to sustain really effective kicking while they swim. When it comes to creating propulsion, resistance is always going to be a go-to strategy. So you can build better fitness and you can build better kicking skills with resistance. So the same activities, whether it's vertical kicking, whether it's kicking on the back, whether it's extreme stroke count swimming, or whether it's a kick swim set, these same activities are going to be more effective when you have resistance. There's two ways to make it happen. You can resist the body, where you go parachutes, cords, sponges, power towers, anything where they're pulling a resistance. They're all going to be really effective. In particular, they're going to be really effective at helping swimmers learn how to hold more water in the feet. They're going to be able to feel the pressure on their feet, the pressure of the water, and that's going to encourage them to work against that pressure, to find ways to create more pressure. The feedback they get from the water is going to be different because of the load, and they can use that to develop better skills. And of course, they've got to overcome that load, so you're going to get a fitness effect as well. You can also resist the feet with drag socks or any other similar item. What's really great about this strategy is while it certainly trains the muscles of the legs, if swimmers don't develop a whip-like kicking action, the sock just kind of gets balled up if they're just bending from the knees and they don't go anywhere. So if they want to make forward progress, they have to have a whipping action, and that allows them to create a lot more propulsion with the drag socks. So if swimmers are struggling to create the whipping action, using drag socks can be really powerful because it really encourages that action also while developing fitness and the ability to sustain that action. So if swimmers are struggling with their skills, using resistance can be really effective. Our last strategy is using speed. And so whatever type of kicking you're doing, whatever type of set you're doing, the goal is always to improve performance. You want to get faster in kicking using different positions, get faster with really low stroke counts, get faster with kick swim work. The faster swimmers can go, the better their kicking is, and the more they can transfer that into swimming and swim really well with tired legs or during a kick swim set, the better they're going to be at integrating those skills into their swimming. It's hard to separate fitness and skill, but if they're going faster, you know that the combination of fitness and skill has improved. And if they progress over time, they're improving their kick, and that should improve the ability to effectively use the kick while swimming. And that's certainly true if you're incorporating kick swim sets or the extreme stroke count work. That's going to help them learn how to use their kick. And if they're going faster in those type of activities, they're getting better at using their kick and backstroke. This is a set to improve the kick. That's a little bit more skill focused. They're going to go 4 rounds through. They're going to go 20 on, 20 off vertical kick. And the focus there is just on executing great skills. Then they're going to go 350 streamline flutter kick on the back. They're going to descend 1 to 3, get a little bit faster as they go. And then they're going to go 3 times 20 on, 20 off, and they're going to go at a higher effort level. Then it's going to be 250s, and they're going to descend 1 to 2 to faster than they went on the 350s. 2 times 20 on, 20 off, go faster again on the vertical, and then a 50 flutter kick slightly faster than the second one of the previous section. Then they'll finish it off with a 50 backstroke swim, solid effort, try to use the legs effectively. As an added twist, on the odd rounds, we're gonna go drag socks with the vertical kick, and that's gonna, again, help them get a little bit better feel for what they're doing and to encourage that whipping action. Then they're gonna try to apply that on the 350s, find a way to make it happen, and they'll carry that through the rest of the set. So we're using the vertical kicking and the resistance to improve their skills. They're taking that into the streamline flutter kick on their back, again, working the back of the legs, working that specific skill of kicking, and then they're gonna try to make it happen during that backstroke swim using the legs really, really well. This set is a little bit more geared towards endurance, and what we're gonna focus on here is setting up the kick and then learning how to use that kick as they swim. So 425 streamline flutter kick on the back with a parachute. They're going to descend 1 to 4. So we're going to use that, get a little bit of resistance, help them hold a little bit more water on their feet. 100 flutter kick on the back, negative split. Try to be really good the second half. And then they're going to go 475s. They're only going to get 6 strokes per lap. They're going to descend those 1 to 4 to strong. And of course, you pick stroke counts that are appropriate for your swimmers. The idea here is to keep it low so that you challenge them to really use their legs. 100 backstroke swim, try to transition what they did on those 75s into their swimming, really great legs all the way through. Then we're going to repeat that same basic pattern. The exception is everything is going to be faster as they go, and they're going to get extra strokes as they go through the 75s as well. So the goal here is they should be able to create more speed, but they're still focusing on the legs throughout. That allows them to work closer and closer and closer to integrating the legs with regular backstroke, but they're still challenging the legs in the front half of each set to really improve their skills, to get them a little bit tired and improve their fitness and the ability to sustain those skills during the back half of each round. So a great way to challenge swimmers' skills and their fitness and their ability to execute these skills while swimming backstroke. Last set is more speed-based. We're going to go 2 rounds through. 225 streamline flutter kick on the back with drag socks. So they're on their back, working the muscles on the back of the leg, and we're encouraging the whipping action because we're using drag socks. Those are fast. Then they're going to go 25 backstroke at 7 strokes a lap with drag socks. That's fast. Again, they don't get very many strokes. They're going to have to really use the legs to create speed and try to find some rhythm when they take those 7 strokes. Then they're going to go 25 backstroke with drag socks, minimize stroke count and time. They've got to use the legs really well. They've got to overcome the resistance of the drag socks. They've got to be fast. They've got to be efficient. Then we're going to repeat that same basic pattern, except we're going to use a parachute. So instead of using the whipping action with the drag socks, we're helping them learn how to hold water a little bit more effectively with the added resistance of the parachute. Same thing, we set it up with the kick. Then we go 7 strokes really long, and then we go minimize stroke count and time with regular backstroke, and then we'll finish it off, take the resistance off, just let them go fast, and hopefully they have a really powerful kick behind them, and it's really well integrated into their actual swimming. 3 sets that you can either use right away or use as inspiration to design your own sets to help swimmers improve their backstroke kicking and the ability to use their legs while they swim. If swimmers can't stay level in the water when swimming backstroke, they're going to have all sorts of problems when it comes to creating speed and sustaining speed. Establishing an effective position and establishing an effective posture is the foundation for effective backstroke, and if swimmers can't learn these skills, they're always going to struggle. We're going to go over why it's so important. We're going to go over what it is. We'll check out what it looks like in elite swimmers. We'll talk about the challenges of improving it, and then we'll go through solutions and sets that you can use to help swimmers improve this critical skill. Let's check it out. So why does horizontal alignment matter? Creating speed in swimming is a simple equation. It's propulsion minus resistance. So poor alignment is going to lead to a lot more resistance, and more resistance leads to less speed. So if swimmers aren't aligned, they're just going to create a ton of drag, and that's going to slow them down significantly. But worse than that, it's also a lot harder to achieve the same speed when swimmers are swimming with poor horizontal alignment. So not only will they be swimming slower, it's going to be a lot more difficult to hit the same speed. So the more energy they're using, the less endurance they're going to have, and less endurance is also going to lead to slower swimming. So if swimmers can't keep their horizontal alignment in check, it's going to result in harder, slower swimming, which is going to kill their speed, kill their endurance, and that's going to prevent them from swimming as fast as they otherwise could. So what do swimmers need to do in order to create great horizontal alignment? First of all, they need to be level in the water. They want to be flat on the surface, that legs and hips should be up in the surface, and it should be relatively effortless to maintain these positions. Swimmers shouldn't have to work really hard in order to stay aligned, because again, the more energy they have to use in order to do that, the slower they're going to swim, because they're not going to have the endurance to sustain whatever speed that they can create. They also want to have a relatively straight, a relatively smooth spine. So they want to minimize the speed bumps. If there's lots of arches, there's lots of excessive rounding, and there's abrupt changes in spinal position, that's all going to slow swimmers down because it's almost like the water's hitting a wall and it's like putting on the brakes. Finally, swimmers need to have a stable position. What you see sometimes is backstrokers kind of bouncing up and down. Again, that's going to be a continuous disruption of alignment, and that's not what we want if we want swimmers to swim fast and to maintain really great alignment as they move through the water, minimizing the amount of resistance they create, which allows them to create more speed for less effort. So if we take a look at this snapshot here, we can see that the swimmer is more or less in a straight line from head to toe, and he's going to maintain that position throughout the entire stroke cycle. So you can see that there's not much up and down motion. The spine is relatively straight. There's going to be some rounding in the back, but that almost just creates a smooth contour that allows the water to pass over the body. What we wouldn't want to see is a big arch in the back. We'd rather see a little bit of rounding there than a big arch in order to maintain really great alignment and really great posture. Another important idea here is that the position is relatively stable. You can see his head is not moving up and down. He's not bouncing up and down, and the hips aren't moving up and down. They're not bouncing up and down. So he's staying level in the water, and he's holding that position throughout the entire stroke cycle. One final thing to look at is that the hips are relatively up at the surface, the legs are up at the surface, and the head, it's not buried down under the surface, but part of it is still under the surface, so he's not having the head up high and he's not having the head down low. He's just kind of going right through the surface of the water. So these are all the key skills that swimmers need to master, the key positions swimmers need to master in order to minimize the amount of resistance they create by having really great alignment as they move through the water. So what are the challenges here? What makes it difficult for swimmers to master this skill? The first challenge is that swimmers are on their back and they don't have any visual feedback as to what they're doing. All they can see is the ceiling of the pool they're swimming in, and if they're swimming outside, they can just see the skies and the clouds. And that makes it more difficult because swimmers don't have anything visually to anchor themselves on to determine whether they're swimming aligned, whether they're swimming straight, or whether they're keeping everything moving in the right direction. And so that can create a big challenge for swimmers because as humans, we're very reliant on our vision. And so when swimmers don't have that visual feedback on their back, it can be more difficult to manage every aspect of the stroke, including their position and their alignment in the water. A second challenge is that in contrast to breaststroke, butterfly, and freestyle, where the head is completely submerged, or more specifically, the face is completely submerged, the face is out of the water in backstroke, but water still passes over the face. And so that makes it difficult, and that makes it uncomfortable because swimmers are breathing during that period, and water is going to intermittently come across their face. It's going to splash their face, and that can be really uncomfortable. And it can be kind of scary for swimmers because that presents a threat to their ability to get oxygen. And as a result, some swimmers will either pick their head up higher out of the water to make sure that they don't have that splashing. Some swimmers you even see that they partially submerge their head and then bring it up to breathe and submerge it again. Also, so that they have a little bit more predictability in terms of when water is going to come across their face, and they're trying to minimize that. That unique dynamic is present only in backstroke, which makes it more difficult for swimmers to manage their alignment on their back. The last challenge, again unique to backstroke, is that the legs will tend to sink, and while they'll also sink in the other strokes, when they sink in backstroke, that causes the back to arch. And when the back arches, because the feet are lower or the hips are lower than the upper body, that's like putting on the brakes. Water will hit that arch in the back, and it has a really hard time going around it. And because it just kind of gets stopped, that puts a stop on swimmers' forward progress. They create a ton of resistance, and that slows them down. And so that's an added challenge to maintaining alignment as compared to the other strokes. And when swimmers are on their stomach, they can kind of lean into the water to get the hips up. When swimmers lean back into the water, that just reinforces that arch of the back. And so that's the tendency, that's the strategy a lot of swimmers will use. And in many cases, that makes the situation worse. Similarly, if the legs are sinking, swimmers aren't managing that well, or they're not kicking effectively, that further contributes to arching of the back. And that makes it even more difficult to maintain position. So for all these reasons, swimmers can really struggle with maintaining alignment on their back as compared to maintaining alignment on their stomach. When it comes to solutions, we have to find ways to overcome these challenges. We have to have certain strategies that help swimmers feel these key skills, and we have to find ways to help them discover these skills for themselves. And to do so, we're going to use different flotation drills, we're going to use different sensory exploration drills, we're going to use different training aids, and we're going to challenge all of those strategies with performance so that swimmers are encouraged to find more effective ways of executing all these skills. When we take a comprehensive approach, we're a lot more likely to get the results, to get the changes that we're looking for. The first exercise we're going to use is the ball float. And so while it's performed in the stomach, it's still critical for helping swimmers learn to feel how the lungs support them in the water. It's a simple exercise that any swimmer can do, and it lets them feel how the lungs hold them up on the surface. And once swimmers understand how the lungs are their source of flotation, they can learn to manipulate that, they can learn to control it in order to create positions and postures that allow for great alignment, that allow them to move through the water faster and easier. The key skill here is for swimmers to grab a big breath and relax and feel the support of the lungs. Once they can do that, then we can start using that understanding to help create change. So this is a super simple exercise. All swimmers are going to do is grab a big breath and just float. And you can see here, these athletes are doing nothing, but their body is floating at the surface of the water because the lungs are holding them up. And so all swimmers have to do is grab a big breath, and they'll be able to learn, they'll be able to feel how the lungs can support them on the surface of the water. And then we can use that understanding, that feeling, to create change. With the inner tube and straight back float, we're going to take what swimmers learned during the ball float and apply that to backstroke specific floating positions. So now they can learn to maintain their position, their alignment on their back. So what we're going to do is we're going to have swimmers alternate between these two different positions so that they can learn to maintain position as they move. We're going to start off in a compressed position and then extend out. We'll take a look at the videos in a sec so you have a visual of it. And what they're going to do is they're going to try to maintain position on the water, maintain control as they extend the arms out, as they extend the legs out. And with this type of activity, the goal is not to be perfect, but to make progress over time. And so if swimmers can get better at managing position in these drills, these activities, it's going to be easier for them to do when they're actually swimming. And once they have forward momentum, it's a lot easier to stay on the surface of the water, but they'll be able to do that with a lot less effort and a lot more precision if they can manage that skill, if they can learn that skill during these isolated floating activities. So again, the expectation is not that swimmers are going to be perfectly flat on the surface of the water with zero effort. However, they want to try to do that, and they want to try to make progress towards that because that means that they're learning how to manage the position more effectively. So this is the inner tube float. You can see it's a compressed position. So the swimmer is going to bring their knees up to their chest. They're going to have their butt down towards the bottom of the pool, and they're going to be resting as passively as possible. And so the goal here is just to find a position that's relatively stable, trying to keep the knees up at the surface, trying to keep the feet up at the surface as well. And from that position, swimmers are going to try to transition into this position. So they're going to extend the arms overhead, you extend the legs straight, and as much as possible, they're trying to keep everything in a line at the surface of the water. And this is going to be very difficult for most swimmers, but if they can get a little bit better, they can maintain a little bit more position, they can maintain a little bit better posture, that's going to be a skill that they're going to be able to take with their regular backstroke swimming. And so again, like we just discussed, it's not about being perfectly aligned, it's trying to make progress, and that progress is going to translate into better alignment when they actually start swimming backstroke. Next up, we've got a couple kicking drills, specifically boat kick and elevator kick. And with boat kick, the goal here is to help swimmers learn how to get away from that arched back position and learn how to round their position a little bit more effectively. So they're going to place their hands across their hips, and they're going to round the upper back. That allows swimmers to kind of sit into the water, relax into the water, rather than having a really big chest and arching their back. And so the goal here is to feel that position in a simplified drill so that they can try to take that position into their backstroke swimming. Similarly, we're going to take elevator kick to help swimmers learn what position the head should be in to allow them to have the most effective, most streamlined position as they move through the water throughout the whole body. So what they're going to do is they're going to start off with a really high head position, a really low head position, and they're going to alternate between the two. And the goal here is to help them feel what's too high, what's too low, what's just right, what allows them to create the least amount of resistance due to the best alignment as they move through the water. And again, the goal here is to help them feel it so that they can take that same position, that same posture, that same alignment into their regular backstroke swimming. These kicking drills can be performed together. They can be performed separately. It's really up to you and about what you're trying to accomplish. At first, it could be useful for swimmers to do them together so that they can learn how to get out of that arched back position and learn how to adjust their head position at the same time. So this is boat kick, and as you can see here, his chest is depressed a little bit. He's got his shoulders up a little bit, and he's really trying to exaggerate the rounding of the back. So he's exaggerating the opposite of that arched back position. And so that's what we're really trying to accomplish here. It's not trying to mimic the perfect position that he wants to swim with. It's trying to help him feel the opposite of the tendency that swimmers have to arch so that they can feel what it's like to round and then try to build upon that and try to execute that with actual backstroke swimming. So you can do this where the head starts high and the head ends low, or you can have them start with the head low and end up with the head high. It's all about letting them feel that big range of head position and the corresponding range of body position. The more effectively swimmers can feel that, the more effective they're going to be at managing their position and finding the right position that they need to execute when swimming backstroke. Next up is elevator swim. And so we're going to take the same concept as elevator kick, and we're going to try to help swimmers feel what head position is going to allow for the best alignment. The goal is to let them feel it rather than have them practice the perfect alignment. So swimmers have different body structures, they have different body densities, so the right position is going to be different from swimmer to swimmer. It's difficult to predict, but if we give them the tools, we can help them discover the right position for them. So I like having them go from both high to low and low to high so that they can feel that change in sensation in multiple ways and allows them to explore in multiple ways, which again increases the chances that they're going to find the most effective way of moving through the water. So here, the swimmer's going to start with really high head position and then drive it down until it's really, really low, and that's going to help him feel what happens to his hip position, what happens to his head position, and how does that affect his overall alignment and the amount of resistance he creates as he moves through the water. So the more that we can help swimmers explore, the more we can help them find what position allows them to swim as easy as possible and to create as little resistance as possible. The more effective they can do that, the faster they're going to go. Next up is head up backstroke. And so for swimmers that are arching the back excessively, this can be a really effective strategy. By having swimmers look down towards the feet, the upper body tends to round without dropping the hips. So if swimmers are arched, that's going to round the spine out while still allowing them to keep the hips up at the surface. It's not about lifting the head up out of the water. It's more about looking down towards the feet or looking down towards the opposite side of the pool. And by doing so, swimmers can find a position that's going to be more effective. And so the most important thing is that subtlety is key here. Just by looking down a little bit, swimmers can get really positive changes in position, especially if they're arched in the back. And this drill, this strategy allows swimmers to figure out how much they need to look back, how much they need to look down in order to create a position that's more effective at creating speed. But what's important is that it's not sitting up in the water. It's just that swimmers need to look down towards their feet, look back. It's just the head moving a little bit, not lifting up out of the water. And that creates a situation where swimmers can learn to round things a little bit more effectively, which allows them to slide through the water more effectively. So as we can see here, the swimmer is looking back towards the camera here, and that's going to round his upper body, round his upper back a little bit, and that's going to allow him to feel what it's like to slide through the water without arching the back. And then all he has to do is settle the head back into the water after that, maintaining the same posture and the same position of his upper body, and that's going to allow him to get the best of both worlds, where the head's back down in line, and he's created a spinal position that allows him to just slide through the water. The next strategy is using training aids to help swimmers better feel the alignment that they're using as they move through the water and whether there's opportunities to improve that alignment to create less resistance. And so it's all about creating awareness and how much resistance is created during any skill development activity. So we can use fins to create more speed than normal, which is going to magnify the amount of drag that swimmers experience and that swimmers create. And the more that they create, the more that they'll be able to feel, and then they'll be able to change it. We can use different types of clothing that swimmers will wear on their body. And when they do, they're going to feel a ton of resistance as they move through the water on those specific parts. T-shirt, for example, they'll feel it across the upper body. If they wear shorts, they'll feel it across the hips. And by having more awareness, they're going to be able to create some change. Then when they take the equipment off, they're going to feel the water flowing over the previously covered parts of the body. And that awareness is going to also help them learn how to feel, how to slide through the water more effectively. Finally, they can use a weight belt, and that's going to pull their hips down out of position, out of alignment. Swimmers are going to have to work harder to maintain the alignment regardless of what they're doing. And they can feel the impact of poor alignment because the weight belt is going to make everything worse. And then when they take the weight belt off, it's going to be much easier to feel those positions and much easier to maintain those positions without the added resistance. So by using training aids, we can create a lot more awareness of how swimmers are moving through the water, the drag that they're creating as they move through the water, and that allows them the opportunity to change how they're swimming. And regardless of what skill development activities we're using, I find that using performance challenges almost always improves the impact. So you can have them use different speeds, different stroke counts, different stroke rates, or different combinations of the three in order to create challenges where, regardless of what they're doing, they need to do it at a higher level, at a better level. And so regardless of what activity they're doing, it's forcing them to swim differently And the more we can force them to swim differently, the more they're going to have to explore, and the more they're going to have to explore how to create change, which is going to be critical for long-term improvement. And so we want to challenge the skill in different situations. So rather than just doing a simple activity such as elevator swim, we can do it at different speeds, we can do it at different stroke rates, we can have them descend, we can have them build, we can use all sorts of different strategies to further challenge that. It'll be novel, there'll be variety, and that's really important for building skills. And swimmers don't have to execute at a maximal effort level for it to be valuable. Just by having them do something different, by forcing them to create change, that's going to promote learning. And so by having someone descend, it doesn't have to be descend to fast, it just has to be a change in speed, it means a change in input, and that means swimmers can swim differently, and with enough practice, they're going to swim better. This is a simple set to demonstrate how to apply all of these strategies. So they're going to go 2 rounds through this. They're going to go 650s. The odds are 25 boat kick plus 25 backstroke. The evens are 25 elevator kick plus 25 backstroke. And they're going to descend those in pairs. They're going to go a 10-second ball float before each repetition. So with the ball float, it's going to help them feel how the lungs are supporting them in the water and how that's going to help them manage their position. And on the kick efforts, the purpose of the boat kick is to help them feel how to maintain a better alignment with their spine, how to round that out just a little bit. And with the elevator kick, it's about finding the best head position to maintain as much horizontal alignment as possible. And swimmers are going to have the opportunity to try to apply whatever they learn, whatever they feel during the kicking efforts into the swimming efforts. And we're going to descend those 650s in pairs so that swimmers can be challenged to apply those skills at higher speeds, and it'll force them to execute and force them to explore at different speeds as well. The second half of it, we're going to use the same concept, but it's going to be a little bit more swim-based. So they're going to go 25 elevator swim plus 25 backstroke and 25 head-up backstroke plus 25 backstroke. They're also going to do a floating exercise before each of those repetitions, but this time it's going to be inner tube to straight back floats. They're going to learn to manage and maintain their alignment as they switch positions. As with the first set of 6, with those first 25s, it's going to help them explore, and then they're going to apply that with the regular backstroke on the second 25s. We're going to descend in pairs again, also so that swimmers can feel, they can learn how to apply these skills at different speeds, and it'll force them to execute those skills in slightly different ways. This next set, a little bit more of an endurance focus, and so they're going to go 250s, 2 100s, 2 150s, and then 2 200s. The first 25 is always going to be a strong effort. The odds are going to be with boat kick. The evens are going to be head-up backstroke. So in both cases, they're going to work on maintaining a little bit more rounded spinal position, and then they're going to try to execute that during the backstroke swims on the second half. The boat kick sets it up, and then with the head-up backstroke, it's going to be full stroke swimming, so they're going to do the same thing at a little bit higher level. And the effort is going to increase during the backstroke swim from steady to strong as the distance goes up. So swimmers are going to execute during that first 25, and they're going to try to maintain that throughout the rest of the set over the longer distances. So the focus here is to have constant reminders of the alignment, the position, the posture that we want, and then have swimmers try to execute and continue to execute that as the distances go up and as the effort goes up. Last set is more speed-based, so they're going to go 5 rounds through. They're going to go 4 25s. The first one is boat kick. The second one is elevator backstroke, where they go high position, low position, and then high position, and then a 25 head-up backstroke and a 25 regular backstroke. So we're focusing on spinal position on that first 25, focus on head position on that second 25, a more advanced version of the spinal position on the third 25, and then regular backstroke at the end. So the challenge here is we're going to use different speed requirements and different training aids to help put these skills under more pressure, to help swimmers explore a little bit more, and to help them learn how to more effectively execute these skills at speed. So round 1, they're going with a t-shirt. They're trying to minimize stroke count and time. Round 2, they're going with fins. They're going to build to fast. Round 3, there's no equipment, and they're going to go minimize stroke count and time. Round 4 is with a t-shirt again. They're going to build to fast now. Fins, minimize stroke count and time, and then no equipment but fast on the end. So we're putting a premium on speed here, and by using the t-shirts and the fins, we're going to allow them to better feel the amount of resistance that they're creating, and that's going to allow them to create change. And they're going to have to do that within the context of either trying to swim fast by building, or they're trying to swim fast by minimizing stroke count and time. So in every way, we're challenging the skills with the drills themselves and how they're executing those skills, and that's going to help promote change in a much more comprehensive way. If backstrokers can't swim straight, they're never going to swim as fast as they otherwise could. It's a common problem with a lot of backstrokers, and it's costing them a lot of speed as they move through the water. So we want swimmers going straight through the water. A lot of times they're not, and we need to find solutions that can consistently and reliably help them learn to swim straighter so that they can go faster. We're going to go over why lateral alignment is so important, what it actually is and what it actually looks like. Then we'll go through solutions to help solve this problem, as well as a few sets to see how to put these ideas into practice. Let's dive in. Why does lateral alignment matter? Well, the more resistance swimmers create as they move through the water, the slower they go. And there's two main ways to create resistance in backstroke. Swimmers want to be horizontally aligned, so they're moving through the water straight. And if they're not, they're at an angle. That's going to create a lot more resistance as they move through the water. Or they want to be moving straight forward through the water. And if they're moving side to side, that's going to create a lot of resistance as well. And side-to-side motions can be more problematic because they're constantly creating more resistance as swimmers shift side to side from position to position. It's one thing to be moving in a static way through the water that creates a lot of resistance, but it's a lot worse when swimmers are moving side to side. And so each stroke is creating more resistance. And to make matters worse, when swimmers are out of alignment, they're moving side to side. The arms aren't going to be in position to create propulsion. So not only are they creating more resistance as they move through the water, they're compromising the effectiveness of their pull. And the combination of those two elements is definitely going to cause swimmers to go slower. So that's why improving lateral alignment is so important. So what is lateral alignment? Well, swimmers want to be moving straight through the water as much as possible. And there should be as little side-to-side motion as they can manage. The more side-to-side motion there is, the more resistance they're going to create, and the more likely it is that they're going to compromise their arm pulls as well. So what causes poor lateral alignment? Well, there can be several different factors. One, if the shoulders are moving side to side, that's going to be a problem. Two, if the head's moving all over the place, that's going to be a problem, mostly because the shoulders are going to follow the head. If the hand is entering behind the head, that's going to shift the shoulders to the side as well. That's going to push the hips to the opposite side, and now swimmers are going to be wiggling back and forth, especially if they do the same thing on the other side with the other arm. Sometimes the arm recoveries themselves are the problem, and swimmers aren't entering the water directly above the shoulders. And then other times, the rotation timing is off, and that prevents swimmers from being in the right position at the right time. For instance, when the hand enters, swimmers want to be rotated down, but if they're flat, there's not really anywhere for the arm to go, and sometimes that'll end up entering behind the head. So as you can see, there's lots of different ways for swimmers to mess this up, and that's why it can be a pretty common problem with a lot of backstrokers. And that's why it's important to have strategies and solutions to help swimmers improve their alignment, because it significantly impacts speed and it's fairly common. So we'll start off with an overhead view where you can see the swimmers are executing really great alignment. So if you watch their head first, you'll see that it doesn't move around very much, and you'll see that they're moving straight through the water and the head is leading the way. Then, if you watch their body, you can see that there's very little side-to-side motion. They're not wiggling much. They're not moving side to side. Again, they're moving everything straight through the water as much as possible. And then the next thing to watch for is the arm recoveries themselves. They're entering straight overhead, and then the other arm is entering relatively straight overhead too. And that's allowing them to enter the water without moving side to side, without rotating, without losing their alignment as they enter the arms and as they begin their pulls. So the overhead view is really effective for helping you see how these swimmers are moving straight through the water. The head's not moving, the shoulders aren't moving much, and as a result, the rest of the body isn't moving much. And that's also facilitated by really clean, really straight, really direct arm recoveries. With lateral alignment, it's probably more about what swimmers don't do and that there's not extra excess motion as opposed to what they have to do. It's more about just keeping everything simple and everything moving straight down the pool. So we'll take a look at the same thing from under the water, and what you want to see is first, let's start with the head. You can see that that head's not moving around much at all. It's moving straight down the middle of the lane, and that's allowing her to swim really straight. And if we watch the shoulders, you'll see that the shoulders are definitely rotating, but they're not moving side to side very much. Everything is moving straight down the pool. It's not going side to side. Then, if we take a look at the hips, they're also rotating pretty well, but there's not very much side-to-side motion. Everything's moving straight down the pool, and everything's going to be really effective in maintaining alignment. And then if we watch the arm recoveries, you can see right there, they're entering straight in a line, and then the other arm is going to enter straight in a line there, and that's preventing her from moving from side to side. So again, just as we watch with the overhead view, we're watching from underneath, everything's straight, nothing's moving around from side to side, and everything's moving straight down the pool, which is going to create as much speed as possible by eliminating as much resistance as possible. So it's all about doing less, and less means going straight and not going side to side. So we've talked about why lateral alignment matters, we've talked about what it is, and we've seen what it is. So what's the challenge in helping swimmers improve this key skill? First of all, it's all about feel. Swimmers have to be aware of what's happening with their body position and how it's moving or not moving as they swim through the water. If they can't feel these movements, if they can't feel the added resistance on their head, on their shoulders, on their hips, they're not going to be able to change it. And unfortunately, a lot of swimmers aren't aware of many of these skills as they need to be. So if they can't feel it, they can't fix it. So we have to find ways to help them feel these skills and understand how they have to move differently in order to create better alignment so that they can create less resistance and create more speed. And related to feel, a lot of swimmers don't realize they're making these mistakes. They think they're moving straight through the water, and to actually be straight, it's going to feel really different, really weird, and that's going to be really uncomfortable for them. And again, if they don't realize they're making these mistakes, if they can't feel it, they're not going to be able to change it. And unfortunately, instruction doesn't always change their awareness. If you just tell a swimmer to keep their head still, they already think they're keeping their head still, so they don't really understand how to keep it more still. Likewise, they don't realize that they're moving the shoulders back and forth with each stroke, or they don't realize they're entering the hand behind the head. And so if you tell them to not do that, they don't understand what that means because they can't feel it and they're not aware of it. So more than anything else, we have to help swimmers feel and become aware of these skills, and we have to use activities that really require them to swim differently. And once they swim differently, they can learn to swim more effectively. Lastly, the symptoms don't always equal the causes. There are a lot of different reasons that swimmers can be disrupting their lateral alignment. It could be arm recoveries, it could be rotation timing, it could be head movement, it could be a combination of all three. And sometimes it's difficult to tell what is causing what. And so you have to address all of these different issues to get everything to clean up, as opposed to just focusing on one thing and having everything work. Now, occasionally you can focus on one thing, and if you focus on the right thing, either by chance or because you know exactly what to do, it can really help clean things up. But a lot of times it's a complicated problem with multiple different factors, and you have to address all of them in order to get the change you want. And so unfortunately, there's not always one or two really simple solutions to get change. You have to kind of attack it from a lot of different perspectives. However, once you do, change can usually happen pretty quickly and pretty significantly. So now we know why lateral alignment is important. We know what it is, we know what it looks like, and we know the challenges that face us to help swimmers improve this skill. So let's talk solutions. Much of the challenge is due to a lack of awareness, so we have to use strategies that help swimmers build awareness. So most of these activities, most of these strategies are really focused on helping swimmers feel the key skills and become aware of how they're moving through the water, and help push them and encourage them to adopt more effective skills. Particularly with lateral alignment, it's useful to have multiple strategies to address the problem, because some strategies are going to work with some swimmers, some strategies are not going to work with some swimmers, and you want to have multiple options because you never necessarily know which swimmer is going to react positively to which solution, to which drill. And so when you have multiple solutions to solve the same basic problem, you're much more likely to find one that helps a swimmer swim faster by improving their skills. So options is key here, and using the options, and then once you figure out what's effective for a given swimmer, you can kind of double down on that and really emphasize that one because you know it's getting the result that you want. So first one up is paddle cat backstroke. So you're going to have them swim down the pool with a paddle on their head. Their only goal is to keep that paddle on their head. So where the head goes, the body follows. If the head's moving all over the place, then the shoulders are going to move all over the place and the hips are going to move all over the place. So if we can keep the head still, it's much more likely that everything else is going to stop moving from side to side. And by putting the paddle on their head, we're encouraging them to keep the head relatively still. It's going to be a lot more difficult to keep the paddle on if they're moving all over the place with their head. And if they can learn to keep the head still, they can learn to keep the paddle on, they're going to be a lot more effective at swimming straight through the water. It's an easy way to solve a lot of problems because the paddle gives really clear feedback. The swimmer's either keeping everything still and keeping the paddle on, or they're moving their head all over the place and they're not keeping the paddle on. And so swimmers learn real quick that they have to move differently. They have to keep the head still if they want to keep the paddle on. So this is pretty straightforward, exactly what you think it is. He's keeping the paddle on his head by keeping the head still. What's really effective is that it allows swimmers to get really great feedback as to whether they're moving the head, and that encourages them to change. And you don't necessarily have to coach it because the paddle is doing the coaching for you. Next is goggles on head. So this is a different version of the previous activity. Same basic idea. We're encouraging swimmers to keep the head still. So they're going to swim with a pair of goggles on their forehead, and the goal is to keep the goggles on their head. To do that, they have to keep the head still. They have to keep the head stable. And as we talked about last time, where the head goes, the body follows. If the head's staying still, the body is more likely to stay still as well. And so you can use different objects to scale the challenge. Goggles are pretty easy because it takes a lot of movement to get them to fall off. Hard is going to be a water bottle right on the top of the head, which is going to take very little movement to get that water bottle to fall. And so swimmers get really good at this skill. You can start using objects that are a lot harder to keep on the head, and that will challenge them further to keep the head really still as they move through the water. So again, pretty straightforward here. The goal is to keep the goggles on the head, and they're going to swim backstroke when they do that. They've got to keep the head still. They've got to keep everything balanced. And they've got to swim more or less straight through the water, or those goggles are going to come off the head. And so this is a great introductory activity. As they get a little bit of skill, you can start playing with different objects to really challenge them to hold that head still in a variety of different ways. Next up is what I call clock drill. So arm entries can significantly disrupt alignment. So if the arms are entering behind the head, that's going to pull the shoulders to the side, the hips are going to go the other direction, and that's going to cause all sorts of problems. And the challenge here is most swimmers have no idea what their arms are doing. They could be entering way over here, they could be entering way over there, they have no idea what's happening. And so by asking them to constantly change their arm positions will help them gain control and understanding and a feel of what their arms are doing and where they're entering the water. So I call it clock drill because they're going to enter the arms at different times, like a face of a clock. So this would be 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock. And then we're going to go to 2 o'clock or 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and then 12 o'clock at the top. And so you can have them enter the arms at different positions and get a feel for what those positions actually are. More likely than not, they're going to struggle with it at first because they have no idea where their arms are and where they need to be at the right time. To make this drill more effective, you want to use variation. You want to use a lot of different positions, and you can move from high positions to low positions, either across repetitions, within repetitions. You can do the opposite. You can start from low positions like 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock, and then move all the way up to 12 o'clock. You can use different arm positions at the same time. So for instance, the left arm is entering at 3 o'clock, and then the right arm is entering at 12 o'clock. And you can also switch positions on a lap-to-lap basis. Again, you're just having them use a lot of different positions. You're having them explore a lot of different entries. And the more you can have them do and the more control they get over it, the more likely it is they're going to be able to find a solution that works for them and allows them to enter cleanly and do so without disrupting their alignment. So here he's going to start at 12 o'clock and he's going to move down the clock face to end up at around 3 and 9. So he's going to get wider and wider with the recoveries, and he's going to be able to feel that difference. And so you can use, again, a lot of different variations of this, but the key idea is that they need to change their arm positions and their entries. And even with this swimmer, you can see that he's much more comfortable entering at around 12 o'clock, and it takes him a while to get down to 3 o'clock. And so you want swimmers to be able to do things on command, do them quickly, and make really quick changes. And if they have control over what they're doing, that means they can feel what they're doing. And if they can feel what they're doing, they can change what they're doing. Last up is head up backstroke, and here we're helping swimmers learn how to time the rotation and tie that into their arm recovery. So if they're not rotating at the right time, they're not rotating to the right amount, they're really going to struggle. By lifting the head up, it tends to do two things that help us here. One, swimmers are going to tend to enter wider, and as we talked about, entering behind the head can cause a lot of problems with lateral alignment. It's also going to encourage swimmers to rotate the shoulders more effectively. That's going to improve the timing, and for those that aren't rotating enough, it's going to help them learn to rotate more. This is a great way to help clean up the arm recoveries, and the more you can clean up the arm recoveries, the more you can clean up alignment. This is particularly effective because you can really use it to help swimmers learn this skill at higher speeds because it tends to lend itself to faster speeds and higher stroke rates. Again, the focus is on the arm recoveries, driving those arm recoveries with the shoulder rotation, and then entering a little bit wider to help swimmers feel how to get the arms out from behind their head and to get them into a position that's creating fewer lateral alignment problems. So as we can see here, his head's up a little bit. He's not totally sitting up. It's not spin drill, but what you're going to see is you can see the shoulders driving there. There's a lot of rotation, and he's entering relatively wide. And what's cool is he doesn't necessarily have to think about these things. They tend to happen naturally. So you don't have to necessarily coach, hey, rotate a lot. Hey, get your arms a little bit wider. It happens as a result of the drill. and that's why it's an effective way to help swimmers learn these skills. So building upon the previous solution, we're also going to address rotational timing with delayed backstroke. And so poor lateral alignment can be caused by poor rotation timing. It makes it harder to get the arm in the right position at the right time. And so the drill delay backstroke can really allow swimmers to better time the rotation of the pull. That's going to reduce the lateral impact of the pull because the arms are going to be in the right position at the right time to pull effectively. And it's going to set up more effective recoveries because again, with more effective rotation timing, swimmers are more likely to be able to get the arms where they need to be, when they need to be, without entering behind the head and disrupting their alignment. When I have swimmers struggling with lateral alignment, I tend to use this solution only when it's really necessary because if I can fix it with the other ones, it's a little bit simpler and it's a little bit more direct. However, if swimmers have real rotation timing problems, this can be a great way to solve those. So a lot of swimmers are going to rotate before they finish the pull. So what we're doing here is we're really exaggerating that aspect of the skill and we're having swimmers pull all the way through prior to rotating. And that's going to put them in the right position at the end of their stroke to get the arms over the surface effectively and in position where they want to be. And it's going to prevent any lateral motion from the pull because it's going to be a lot more direct when it's working with the rotation. So if swimmers are having some pretty significant rotation timing issues, you're going to have to do something like this in order to clean those up, or else it's going to be really difficult to get the arm recoveries to go where you want them to go. So having discussed several different drills that you can use to help swimmers improve their alignment, it's not just about doing those drills, it's how you do them. So you want to challenge them. And what you want to do is you want to have as much variation as possible so that they can get a better understanding of the skills they're trying to execute and they can get a better feel for what they're trying to do. And different options are going to force swimmers to swim effectively in different contexts. So you can use resistance. That's going to challenge swimmers in some ways. You can use overspeed. You can use buoys. You can use different hand postures like closed fist. You can have them go okay signs. You can have them use paddles. You can have them hold paddles in different ways. There's lots of different options. But it's not enough to just do the drills. You want to do the drills in a lot of different contexts. So that way, they're going to learn more effectively, they're going to learn more broadly, and that's going to help them execute any given skill a lot better. By giving them novel challenges, you're going to ensure that they continue to learn over time, whereas if you just do the same drills over and over again, they're not going to continue to learn. The idea is not to change the drills. You want to use the ones that are effective. Instead, you change how the drills are performed, and that's going to allow them to continue to work with really effective drills, but they're going to continue to learn because they're learning those drills in different ways. Whenever you're working on skills, I always encourage coaches to ask for performance in some way. So you can use stroke counts, you can use stroke rates, you can use speed, and you can use them in some sort of combination. By doing so, you're encouraging swimmers to find more effective solutions. If they have to go faster, they have to figure out how to execute the drill better. If they have to hit a certain stroke count, they have to be precise with how they're executing the drill. If you ask them to take lower stroke counts, they have to be more effective with the drill. Same thing with stroke rate. You can have them use fast stroke rates and swim well. You can have them use low stroke rates and swim well. It's about creating change and asking for performance. There's two basic ways that you can approach this. You can use the different sensory activities, the different drills, and then ask for performance. So for instance, you can go 425s paddle cat backstroke. They get a feel for what's happening with the head, and then you have them go 450s backstroke, descend 1 to 4 at the same stroke count. Or you can have them perform during the sensory activities. So they're going to go 425s head up backstroke. They're going to build those to fast, so they have to change their speed with the head up backstroke. And then they're going to go 425s, minimize stroke count and time, backstroke, where they try to apply that same skill into their swimming. So both are really effective. I use both consistently. The key thing is that you're challenging the skills, you're challenging the drills, and you're asking them to perform while swimming really well. Not only is that going to get better performance, it's going to encourage them to find better and more effective ways to execute the skills. And when they do that, that's what's going to promote learning. And the more they learn, the faster they're going to go. Now, let's take a look at some sets. This one's really focused on skill development as opposed to really training fitness. So they're going to go 425s and then 4 rounds of a 50 and a 25. They're going to repeat that 3 times. So they're always going to go 425s backstroke with a goggle in the head. Now we're focusing on keeping that head still. The first round, they're going to descend 1 to 4. The next round, they're going to build. And the last round, they're going to go strong effort. So they're changing their speed as they do that drill. So they have to make sure they keep everything locked in and stable regardless of the speed. The next section, they're going to go 50 clock drill, and they're going to alternate that with a 25 backstroke. That backstroke is always descend 1 to 4. So they're trying to put together whatever they learned during the clock drill into that backstroke 25. For the clock drill, they're going to change how they do it each round, but each round they're going to descend those 1 to 4. So for the first round, they're going to go 25, where they start at 12 o'clock and then end up at 3 o'clock. And then they're going to go 25, where they start at 3 o'clock and end up at 12 o'clock. And that's within the 25. So they're changing their arm entries, they're changing their arm recoveries within each 25. Next section, they're going to go 25, where one arm is at 3 o'clock and the other arm is at 12 o'clock. So they're going to have one arm out to the side, one arm overhead, and they're going to be able to feel the difference between those two. And then they're going to switch sides by 25. And then the last one, they're going to alternate between 6 strokes at 12, 6 strokes at 3. So they're going to go 6 strokes out here and then 6 strokes up here. And the purpose behind all that is to help them feel the differences in arm position. They can learn to control it. They can learn to feel it. And that means they're more likely to be able to find and select an arm recovery that's going to be most effective at helping them move straight down the pool. 2 basic drills here, but we're using a lot of different variations, a lot of variety to help them really explore, figure out how to execute these skills in a lot of different situations. Next set has a little bit more of an endurance focus. They're going to go 350s, and then they're going to go 2 backstroke efforts, and they're going to repeat that for 5 total rounds. So the 350s are always 25 delay backstroke, 25 head up backstroke, and they're doing that with a pull buoy. They're going to descend those 1 to 3 to solid. So the purpose here is that we're focusing on the rotational timing aspect. The delay backstroke is focusing on the rotation timing during the pull. The head up backstroke is focusing on the rotation time during the arm recoveries. We're going to take the legs out of it with the pull buoy to really force them to be effective with the arms. They're going to descend those 1 to 3, and each round, that descend is going to get a little bit faster. So they're going to have to be better and more effective with the timing as they go through. The longer efforts are always going to be backstroke, where number 1 is solid, number 2 is stronger, and they have to go the same stroke count each 25. So they're going to put together whatever they did on those 50s. They're going to try to execute that during the longer swims. We're going to go 2 125s, 2 175s, and then 2 225s, and then we're going to go back down to 2 175s, 2 125s, and they need to be faster as they go. So each longer section is set up by the timing drills and focusing on the rotational timing to really make sure that everything is happening at the right time and the right way so that the arms can be in the right position to make sure that everything is moving straight down the pool. And then they're going to try to figure that out with the longer swims and the whole set, the whole time through. They're going to be adding effort, adding speed to increase the challenge and to try to execute those skills in more and more difficult situations. Next set is more of a speed focused set. They're going to go 4 rounds through of 5 25s. So the first one is paddle cap backstroke. They're going to build to fast. The next one is head up backstroke. They're going to build to fast. Then paddle cap backstroke with fins, build to fast. Then head up backstroke with fins, build to fast. And then to finish, a 25 backstroke fast. So the paddle cap freestyle, they've got to keep everything straight. They've got to keep everything locked in. And they're trying to build to as fast as they can without letting that paddle come off. At first, it might be difficult for them to do that, but they're trying to go as fast as they can. With head up backstroke, they're trying to create speed by driving the shoulders harder, by entering the water more aggressively, while trying to make sure that those arm entries are happening a little bit wider than what they're used to. And then when they put the head back down, they'll probably be right where they need to be. Then we'll do the next 2 repetitions with fins so that they can feel the same things at even higher speeds. And then they'll finish it off, try to execute a really great 25 backstroke fast without any restrictions, without any requirements. They just let it happen. So it's a great way to work on these skills at speed, because if swimmers can't do them fast, they're not going to be able to do them in races. So they have to start practicing that pretty early. And as they get more and more skilled, you can just have them do it in faster and faster situations. So lateral alignment is key for effective backstroke. It's all about moving straight down the pool. And the best way to help swimmers learn this skill is to challenge them with different drills that really help them feel and explore different ways to execute the arm recoveries, the head position, and the rotation timing, because those are the key elements of effective lateral alignment. And when swimmers can lock those in, they're going to be able to swim faster. So it's just a matter of exposing them to the right activities and then challenging them in those activities. Rotation timing is absolutely critical for fast swimming in backstroke. And unfortunately, rotational concepts in freestyle are often applied to backstroke, when in reality, backstroke rotation timing is completely different. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about backstroke rotation timing, and I'm going to provide you several strategies that you can use to help your swimmers improve their backstroke timing. Backstroke rotation timing is actually quite different than freestyle rotation timing. And once we understand what's actually happening in backstroke rotation timing, we can start to develop strategies to help swimmers learn these skills quickly and easily. We're going to go over why backstroke timing matters. We're going to go over what backstroke timing looks like and what it is. We're going to go over why backstroke timing can be difficult to improve. And then we're going to go over my favorite strategies to improve backstroke timing. Finally, we'll cap it off with some backstroke sets that you can either implement immediately or modify to help your swimmers learn better rotational timing. So what's the big deal? Why does rotation timing matter? Well, there's only so much range of motion in the shoulder, and it's hard to get the arm back behind the body. So think about it. If you're laying on your back in the water and you try to get your hand really deep, it's really difficult to do that without rotating. And when swimmers are on their back, the arm needs to get down behind the body to get deep in the water so that they can create propulsion. And because the shoulder doesn't really have the range of motion to do that, we need to do something else. And that solution is rotation. So you can just stand here, and if you want to get your arm well behind your body, you can't just reach it back. You're going to have to rotate back, and all of a sudden, you have access to that range of motion. And so rotation creates the necessary range of motion. Now, the arm can get into an effective position to pull with, and it can stay in that effective position for a lot longer. That means stronger pulling actions. Stronger pulling actions mean more propulsion. More propulsion means more speed. So again, the reason swimmers rotate is to get into effective pulling positions. And if they don't, they're not going to be able to pull very effectively. They're not going to swim very fast. The drawback of rotation is that it takes time. And so more rotation is going to mean a slower stroke rate, and a slower stroke rate means less speed. And since speed is the name of the game, we only want swimmers to rotate as much as necessary to get into effective pulling positions and no more. So how can we minimize the amount of rotation while maximizing the impact of rotation? It all comes back to timing. If the rotation timing is effective, swimmers can get into better positions, they can get there faster, and they can get just as much propulsion in less time. And if they can do that, they're going to swim fast. So what actually is effective rotation timing in backstroke? Well, when the hand enters the water, there's going to be a quick downward rotation to the same side, and this is going to happen fast. And so it gets the swimmer into the position to pull effectively, and it does so really quickly. Remember, we need to get the arm underwater in order to create propulsion, and we need to get there in an effective position. Next, there's almost zero rotation through most of the pull. And so the swimmer, once they get into that position after the entry, they're going to stay there throughout the majority of the pull. The swimmer is going to stay rotated down to maintain effective pulling positions. If they rotate away, they're going to lose that effective position, and they're not going to be able to create as much propulsion. Then, as the pull finishes, there's going to be a fast rotation to the other side of the body, and we're going to start the same process all over again. And so while freestyle rotation tends to be relatively smooth and continuous, rotation in backstroke is intermittent and it's rapid. It's not gradual, it's not constant, it's quick and punctuated from side to side. There's very quick shifts in body position, and then there's an absence of movement and then another really quick shift to the other side. And so rotation at the end of the pull is going to be paired with rotation upon entries. So as the pull finishes on one side and the arm enters on the other side, there's going to be a switch to that recovery side. And because the hand speed's really high at the end of the pull, the hand speed's really high at the entry, the momentum of the hands can be used to help swimmers switch sides. And when you use momentum, that means the shift is going to happen faster, which again is what we want, and it's going to take less energy, which again is what we want. More speed for less effort is definitely a great outcome. So we'll take a look at what's happening from under the water first. So as we see here upon entry, the body's going to rotate down, and then he's not going to move very much. Watch the torso. It's not moving, it's not moving, it's not moving, it's not moving. And then only when he finishes the stroke, that's when the rotation really happens. And so again, on the other side, he's going to pull through, watch the back of his suit. It's not moving, it's not moving. And then at the end of the pull there, that's where it really starts to move. And it's happening at the same time as the opposite arm enters the water. So now he's back on this side. He's not moving, he's not moving, he's not moving. And then he's going to switch again. Now we can see the back of his suit again. And now he's on the other side. He's not going to be moving, he's not going to be moving, he's not going to be moving. And then bam, he switches as the hand finishes and the other arm enters. So again, it's a quick shift from side to side. There's a delay of rotation during the pull itself. You see here, there's very, very, very little rotation during the actual pull itself. And that's so that the arm can stay down in the water and create a lot of propulsion. If he rotated away, he wouldn't be able to maintain that same effective position. So he's going to stay down, and now he's got to switch to the other side. So there's the rotation to the other side. So again, there's going to be a quick rotation to one side. There's going to be a pause as the pull happens, and then a quick rotation back to the original side. If we watch over the surface, what you'll see here is the shoulders are going to drive down as the arm enters. So if we watch both these swimmers here, the arm's going to drive in, the opposite shoulder is going to pop up, indicating rotation, and then they're going to slam the arm in, and the other side's going to come up. So as the arms enter, that's driving the rotation. There's not much rotation, and then the other arm enters, and that drives rotation to the other side. And just like we saw with the underwater footage, there's limited rotation during the pull itself, and then at the end of the pull, and as the arms enter, there's a quick shift from side to side, and that's what effective rotation is all about. Now we'll talk about the challenge of helping swimmers improve their timing. If we can better understand the challenge, we're going to be able to design more effective solutions to actually help them improve. So the biggest challenge is that timing is precise and timing is subtle. It's difficult to describe what to do, and it's difficult to time the recovery and the pull at exactly the right moment to get that quick shift from side to side. Another big challenge is a lot of swimmers think that freestyle and backstroke timing are the same, and they try to rotate continuously rather than intermittently. And that's going to have a negative impact on the pull, and that's going to impair their ability to create speed. Another issue is if swimmers aren't able to switch sides fast enough because they can't get the timing right, they're going to have to start rotating earlier, and again, this is going to negatively impact the pull. And because timing is so precise, and because it's so subtle, it can be difficult to explain exactly what swimmers need to do, because we're not telling them what positions to get in, we're telling them how to perform certain movements in relation to other movements in time. And that can be a little bit more difficult to describe, and it's more difficult for swimmers to understand. So we have to create solutions that overcome these challenges. Now it's time to start talking about the fun stuff. How do we actually help swimmers improve their backstroke timing? I'm going to go over 3 activities that are particularly useful for helping swimmers understand the key positions and the key timing. And then we're going to go over 2 performance strategies that can further accelerate learning. When helping swimmers learn effective backstroke timing, the place I like to start is with side pull. So the focus is on pulling straight back while on the side and without rotating. The goal here is to create sensory awareness. We're trying to help swimmers feel what it's like to pull on the side. We're trying to help swimmers feel what it's like to pull without rotation. And this is 100% an exaggeration. We're going well beyond what they actually need to do, but by creating an awareness of what exists well beyond what they need to do, it becomes a lot easier to do what they actually have to do. So again, this is about creating awareness and helping them feel these key movements. So by magnifying the amount of rotation and a complete lack of rotation, it's going to be a lot easier to learn the skills that we actually want them to develop. So the execution here is pretty simple. They're going to be on their side. They're not going to rotate at all. They're going to set up the stroke, and they're going to pull straight back. So the big idea here is being on the side, getting the arm deep, creating an effective pulling position, and then just pulling straight back. They don't have to worry about rotation. They don't have to worry about the arm recovery. We're just giving them some sensory awareness of what it's like, what it feels like to pull when they're rotated down and to pull without rotating. Next, we're going to use delayed backstroke. So we're going to delay the rotation, but now we're going to do so in an exaggerated way within the context of full stroke swimming. Instead of just doing one arm at a time, both arms are involved. Now there's going to be arm recoveries. There's going to be rotation. We're a lot closer to regular backstroke swimming. But again, we're still exaggerating the delay in the rotation to help swimmers better feel what it's like. And again, if we can exaggerate things, we're more likely to create a change when they're actually swimming backstroke. The key here is that swimmers must complete the pull before they rotate. And again, this allows them to better feel what delayed rotation is like. And we're moving closer to full stroke swimming, which is going to make the transition of full stroke swimming while still executing effective skills a lot easier. So this is similar to side pull, and that the swimmer is going to pull straight back without rotating, but then they're going to switch sides and they're going to move to the other side, recover the arm, and do the same thing. So the key idea here is to get on the side, pull straight back, and then rotate. So we're trying to really separate the pull and the rotation, really exaggerate that separation, and that awareness is going to help swimmers better learn, better figure out how to actually do it or do some version of it when they're swimming backstroke. The more we can help swimmers feel these skills and feel these skills in different ways, the more likely we're going to be able to create change. And so again, this is an exaggeration, and this exaggeration can help them become more aware of what it's like to delay their rotation when they actually pull. So the previous 2 exercises really focused on what's happening under the water. Now we're going to try to influence what's happening over the water. We're going to do that with head-up backstroke. And so as we talked about earlier, a fast rotation upon entry is key for effective rotation. And by using head-up backstroke, it allows swimmers to feel how to use the recovery to drive the rotation. And so with a higher head position, the shoulder rotation has to be a lot more aggressive to get the hands in the right position. And so swimmers can learn to use the momentum of the arm recovery to swing the arm into position and then facilitate the rotation using the hand speed rather than just trying to twist the shoulders. So again, by exaggerating, by making things a little bit more difficult, we can help swimmers learn the key skills by overdoing what they're actually going to have to do when they swim regular backstroke. If they can be successful with overdoing it, doing what they actually need to do is going to be a lot simpler. So we watch here, the head's going to be up a little bit. It doesn't have to be up extremely high, but then the focus is on really driving the shoulders and swinging the arms into position. And you can see here, his shoulders are moving back and forth. He's really getting the arm in position and driving the rotation with the entry. And the more effective swimmers can be with this, the more they can do it at higher speeds and higher rates, the more effective they're going to be at doing it when swimming regular backstroke. Having discussed 3 different activities that you can use to help swimmers improve their timing, now we're going to talk about 2 different strategies that you can use to help swimmers improve their timing regardless of the activity you choose to use. So the first up is resistance. When you use resistance, everything is going to be slowed down. And that's because of the added resistance. It simply takes more time to move through the pull. And this allows swimmers to get into the right position at slower speeds. So because everything's happening just a little bit slower, they have more time to react, they have more time to adjust, they have more time to feel it out. And so that way they can learn effective timing at high effort levels because they're still going to work hard to overcome the resistance, but it's happening at slower speeds. And so for swimmers that can't make it happen at really fast speeds, doing stuff with resistance can help put them in a situation where they have time to figure it out. And once they can figure it out with the resistance, you can start to take the resistance away and let them figure it out with normal swimming. And because they're working at high effort levels, the transition to higher speed and higher effort levels is relatively smooth. It's not like they're swimming slow. Everything's just happening slower, even though they're working at high effort levels. Secondly, as we talked about earlier, effective rotation timing requires an aggressive switch from one side to the other and then back to the original side. And so if they have resistance, it's going to be more difficult to do that. And if they can develop a stronger switch, they can develop more strength in being able to switch from one side to the other. The faster they're going to be able to switch and the more reliably they're going to be able to switch when they're actually swimming without the resistance. So we're actually strength training the skill here. We're helping swimmers develop the skill and the strength to switch from side to side faster and more effectively. Lastly, if swimmers are getting in the right position with their timing, they're going to be able to execute a more effective pull. And because they have to overcome the resistance to create propulsion, and a more effective pull is going to be a lot more obvious due to the extra load. If they're in poor positions, it's going to be really difficult to work against the resistance. But if they're in effective positions, it's going to be a lot easier to work against the resistance, and they're going to be able to feel that. While it can help them feel when they are being effective, more importantly, it's going to help them really feel when they're not being effective, because they simply won't be able to create nearly as much propulsion if they get the timing wrong. And so for all those reasons, resistance can be really effective at helping swimmers learn to improve their timing in backstroke. Our final strategy is to ask for performance. So whether that's stroke counts, stroke rates, speed, or some combination of the 3, requiring performance is going to require change. Simply performing some of these activities can be useful in and of itself, but when you ask them to swim faster, swim longer, or swim with this specific stroke rate, they're going to have to really change and find ways to execute those drills, execute those activities within the parameters of the set. They can't just go through the motions. They've got to lock in and they've got to figure out a way to make it happen. So you can use the drills, the sensory activities, and then perform, like the set below, where it's 3 times 625s, odd delay backstroke, evens head up backstroke, and then a 50 backstroke, minimized stroke count and time. Or you can actually have them perform during the sensory activities. So 625 side pull, odds are left, evens are right, minimized stroke count, and then 50 backstroke, minimized stroke count and time. So by challenging regular swimming, you're going to get change. And by challenging the activities we described earlier, that helps swimmers become more aware of what they're doing. By challenging those as well, you're going to get change in those activities too. And again, what we're looking for is change. And by pushing swimmers with performance, and they don't have to be maximal performances by any means, they just have to encourage swimmers to swim differently, we're going to get better learning because swimmers are going to be asked to move through the water more effectively. So in almost all cases, I'm going to ask for performance in one way or another, simply because you get better engagement and you get better change. So now let's go over some sets that you can either implement or modify to help swimmers improve their timing. So we're going to go 3 rounds through this. They're going to go 225 side pull with a parachute. They're going to build it. And then a 25 delay backstroke with a parachute build. 25 head up backstroke with a parachute build. Then they're going to go 250s as 25 side pull, 25 backstroke, 25 minimized stroke count plus 25 strong. And then they'll do the same thing with delay backstroke, the same thing with head up backstroke, and then they'll finish it off with 100 backstroke solid effort, descend 1 to 3. So we're using the different drills, and we're using a parachute to help increase the challenge, and we're asking them to build speed as well. Then we're going into the 50s where they're minimizing stroke count, and then they're backing that right up with a strong 25 backstroke. and then we'll finish it off with 100 backstroke, solid, descend 1 to 3. So we're helping them feel the key skills with the drills. We're further challenging those drills with the parachute and the speed changes, and then we're giving them the opportunity to apply whatever they've learned, whatever they felt into regular backstroke swimming. And in combination, all those different aspects of the set provide swimmers with the best opportunity to learn these skills. This set is more of an endurance set, and so they're going to go 3 200s, 50 delay backstroke plus 50 backstroke. They're going to descend 1 to 3 to strong at the same stroke count. Then they're going to go 3 rounds where they go 25 delay backstroke, build to fast, and then a 75 backstroke, descend 1 to 3 to strong, but there's no stroke count there. Then 3 200s as 25 delay plus 75 backstroke, descend 1 to 3 to stronger at the same stroke count, and then 3 rounds, 25 delay backstroke fast, and 75 backstroke, descend 1 to 3 to stronger. So we're really focusing on one drill here. We're helping swimmers learn to delay the rotation when they pull, and we're really putting pressure on them to learn how to swim effectively. So they're descending at the same stroke count, they're building to fast, and they're actually going fast in that last section. So they're learning to execute this skill at higher and higher performance levels, and they have the opportunity to try to figure it out and apply what they're learning during that drill into the regular backstroke swimming. And they're doing it all while working relatively hard. So a great way to incorporate these concepts into a relatively traditional endurance set. This third and final set is geared more towards improving these skills at faster speeds. So they're going to go 2 rounds through. They're going to start off with 6 efforts. The odds are 25 delay backstroke with a parachute, minimize stroke count and time. And then they're going to go 8 cycles of head up backstroke with a parachute fast. They'll do that pair 3 times. Then they're going 4 25s with a parachute backstroke, minimize stroke count and time. And then a 25 delay backstroke without the parachute, minimize stroke count and time. 25 head up backstroke, minimize stroke count and time, and then 25 backstroke, minimize stroke count and time, and a 25 backstroke fast. We're using the 2 drills to improve rotation both from the bottom in terms of working on the delay aspect of the pull, and also from the top in terms of working on the rotation upon entry. And we're doing it with a performance expectation that swimmers stay really long and they try to go really fast. Then we give swimmers the opportunity to put it all together with a regular 25 backstroke fast. So by performing these activities at higher speeds, we're helping them figure out how to execute these skills while swimming really, really fast. And the better they can do that, the faster they're going to swim. So rotation is critical in backstroke to create extra range of motion so that swimmers can pull effectively. So swimmers need to rotate at the right time to maximize the benefit while minimizing the amount of rotation that's necessary. And by using side pull, delay backstroke, and head up backstroke, we can really help swimmers feel these key skills, and then we can challenge those skills by using resistance and asking for performance to really take what they learn to the next level. And at that point, all you have to do is write some sets that put these ideas into practice to help your swimmers learn effective backstroke timing, and if they can learn effective backstroke timing, they're going to swim fast. While the arm recoveries in backstroke aren't going to create speed, poor arm recoveries can absolutely kill speed. It can disrupt alignment, it can negatively impact the ability to create propulsion with the arms, and it can wreck timing. So if we don't improve, we don't address arm recoveries in backstroke, we're ultimately going to be selling swimmers short. If we're focused on the key skills of improving alignment, creating more propulsion, and optimizing timing, we're going to have to address arm recoveries at some point, because poor arm recoveries can have a negative impact on all these factors. And rather than just adding a couple drills, we need to use strategies that can be built into our training sessions so that we can develop these skills while improving fitness so that these skills actually show up in races and swimmers have the fitness to sustain those skills throughout the entire race. We're going to go over why arm recoveries are so important. We're going to go over what effective arm recoveries are. We're going to talk about why it's difficult to improve them, and then we're going to go through how to improve them and what sets can look like in order to make that happen in practice. Let's check it out. So why does it matter? Why are arm recoveries relevant and important in backstroke? First of all, they disrupt alignment. So if the arms are entering behind the head, the shoulders are going to move out of position, then the hips are going to move out of position. Everything's going to be going side to side, especially when one arm goes this way and the other arm goes that way. And that's going to cause all sorts of alignment issues, which cause all sorts of resistance issues, all sorts of drag issues, which means swimmers are going to go slower. Poor arm recoveries also disrupt timing. So if the arm enters in that same position or it enters really wide, it's going to be a lot harder to rotate at the right time, and that's going to make everything more difficult to do because the arms aren't going to be in the right position to do what they need to do best, which is create a lot of propulsion. Which brings us to the next point. Poor arm recoveries can also disrupt propulsion. If their arms aren't in the right position, they're not going to be able to set up an effective catch. They're not going to be able to set up their stroke. If they can't do that, it's all downhill from there. They're not going to be able to move as much water as they otherwise could. And so for all those reasons, 3 really big reasons, Swimmers are going to go slower if their arm recoveries are preventing them from swimming effectively. They're not going to be able to maintain great alignment, they're not going to be able to maintain great timing, and they're not going to be able to create a lot of propulsion. So if swimmers' arm recoveries are impairing these skills, we need to address them and so that they can improve their overall speed. So what are effective recoveries? First of all, they're straight and they're over the top. So if swimmers are recovering with bent arms or they're swinging them from side to side, it's not going to be effective. They need to be straight and they need to be coming right up over the top to minimize any of that side-to-side motion. And because if they go straight and they go direct, they're going to be faster too, which means that swimmers can get through the recovery and into the next propulsive phase even faster. Where should they enter? About shoulder width. Again, they're coming right over the top. They're being direct, so they want to just go straight in. If they're too wide, it's going to be difficult to set up the stroke. If it's going to be over the head, that's too narrow, it's also going to be difficult to set up the stroke, and it's going to negatively impact timing and alignment. Then, when those recoveries happen, swimmers want to drive the arm into the setup of the stroke. And so it's going to couple with the rotation. So as the hand comes over, it's going to drive in, and that's going to set up the rotation. That's going to get the hand in a position where it can quickly be oriented to face backwards, to move water backwards. So the arm recoveries are relatively simple in terms of what needs to happen. They need to be straight, they need to be direct, they need to get into the stroke right away, and the body needs to rotate with the arm recovery so that everything can get driven into the water and into the water in a way that sets up the next stroke. So if we watch these swimmers here, what we'll notice is that they're coming straight over the top, they're really direct, the arms aren't bent, there's no side-to-side motions, and if you watch, the arms are ending pretty much right over their shoulders, which again is going to be easy for them to achieve from a structural standpoint in terms of range of motion. But just as importantly, there's not going to be that side-to-side motion. The other thing to watch for is as the arms come over, you'll see that the shoulder drives down, and so the rotation is happening with the arm recovery, and that's going to facilitate that side-to-side shift, which is what we're also looking for. So straight, direct, and then into the stroke right away, and setting up the stroke right away, minimizing any side-to-side motion. There's no hesitation, and the timing still looks really good. So really direct is what we're looking for. Now, if we watch what's happening under the water, we'll see the hand drives in, and as that happens, you can see that the rotation's happening at the same time. So that's another important aspect of the recovery. It facilitates that rotation, and it facilitates that setup of the stroke. So you can see there, the hand comes in, and bam, he's rotated onto that side right away. The arm's in a position to get set up. And when the arm recovery is happening really well, that process is facilitated. If not, there's going to be maybe a delay in the rotation. The rotation's not going to really happen at all. Or the arm's going to be behind the head, and that's going to prevent the rotation from happening. So again, you especially see it here on the other side. Arm goes in, and that gets him rotated onto that side, and then he can get into the next stroke. So a key aspect of the recovery is facilitating the process of getting into the next stroke, setting it up so that swimmers can create more propulsion and keep rolling forward and keep creating speed. So one more angle here, and what we'll see, again, straight over the top, she's entering right by the shoulder, right above the shoulder, and then getting into the rotation. And so right here again, bam, she's getting onto it, and she's getting right in the right position. And if those arms were coming in behind her head, she's going to have problems. If those arms are going in out to the side, she's going to have problems. But because everything's clean, because everything's direct, she's able to get into the right positions right away, and she's able to create more propulsion with the next stroke right away as well. And so again, the arm recoveries aren't necessarily creating speed, but they're preventing swimmers from losing speed by allowing them to maintain their alignment. You can see she's moving straight through the water. She's not going side to side at all, and get into the next stroke effectively and time the rotation effectively so that she can get more out of each stroke. Because if she was not in the right position from a rotational standpoint here, she's not going to have a great pull. And then also, if she wasn't getting right into the stroke right away, she wouldn't have a great pull either. So those arm recoveries really facilitate and set up that process by being really direct, really clean, really straight. So what's the challenge? Well, first of all, it's backstroke especially, the arm recoveries are really ballistic. Once the hand goes, once the hand's out of the water, it's gone. It's not something that swimmers can necessarily control. It gets swung over the top. And so while freestyle definitely has that element at faster speeds, a lot of times swimmers can kind of control or modulate their arm recovery in freestyle, a lot less so in backstroke. Once it goes, it's flying, and it needs to be direct right from the start, or it's going to cause problems later. So again, it's hard to change the arm path if it's not set up in the right way from the beginning. The other thing is that if timing is off, if the rotation's not happening at the right time, if their body alignment isn't very good, if they're swimming with an arched chest, it's going to be a lot more difficult to recover the arms. If their head's moving side to side, it's going to be difficult to recover the arms. And so the more that these other factors are influencing the recovery, the more difficult it's going to be to change the recovery if those underlying issues aren't addressed. And this is true of all recoveries. It's hard for swimmers to know exactly where their arms are in space. So they may think they're recovering the arm straight, but it's really bent. They can't tell the difference. They think they're doing it right. Or they may think that they're recovering the arm directly, but really it's kind of doing this wave motion over their face, or it's swinging way out to the side and then coming around over the top. Again, they don't necessarily know that because they've done it every time and it feels normal to them. So we have to help them become aware of what their arm is doing and what are the other options that may be more effective. Finally, and this is true of freestyle as well, the arms are moving independently, and so that's a lot more opportunity to mess them up. And so they have to stay in timing with each other, and because they're moving separately, it's hard to shift focus from one arm to the other, and again, similar to the ballistic nature, it just becomes harder to control and harder to manage what's happening because it's coming at them fast, it's coming at them in an alternating rhythm, and that's just one more thing that makes it more difficult for swimmers to manage, control, and improve their arm recoveries. So solutions. Well, we have to overcome those challenges. We know what swimmers need to do. It's pretty simple. Be direct, be straight, drive into the beginning of the stroke. However, that doesn't mean it's easy to do. Swimmers have to be able to manage this when the arms are moving fast and they're moving ballistically and they're moving in opposition to each other. We also have to make sure there's no obstacles to effective recovery in terms of the alignment that they have, the timing that they have. We have to make sure that that's not an obstacle either. And we have to help them learn how to feel where their arms are in space, how to control that so that they can better influence what they're doing as opposed to just letting it happen, hoping for the best, and then wondering why nothing changes. We can do so in a systematic way. We can build that into the training. Then we stand a much better chance of getting change that actually results in faster swimming. Let's check out some ideas for how to make it happen. First up is paddle cap backstroke. So are we working on the arm recoveries directly? No, but we're removing an obstacle that can prevent effective arm recoveries. If that head is moving all over the place, well, they're going to have some trouble recovering the arms effectively because they need a stable platform from which to rotate and which to swing the arms. So it's going to be very hard to do if that head's moving. Our goal is to get that head locked in so we can actually improve the arm recoveries. Putting a paddle on their head, having them swim, tell them to keep it still. That's a pretty effective way to make it happen because if that paddle is coming off, that means their head's moving and they're going to get some very clear feedback as to what's happening and what they need to do about it. Now, if your swimmers don't have this problem, you don't need to address this step. And so if their head position is pretty good, they're not moving their head around, they're not moving their body around, you don't need to worry about this. But if they are, and you try to improve their arm recoveries without addressing this, you're going to have lots of problems. So make sure you check this box. And once you do, you can move on. This is paddle cap backstroke. Exactly what it sounds like, simple enough. You can see that head's not moving. He's keeping everything locked in and that paddle's staying in place. And so it's a great way to get great feedback for swimmers. It lets them know exactly what's going on, lets them know exactly what they need to do, and it lets them know if they're messing up, when they're messing up, and what they can do to fix it. So super simple, super effective. If swimmers' heads are moving all over the place, give this a shot and they'll get it locked in sooner than later. Next up is delayed backstroke. And as with paddle cap backstroke, this is more about removing an obstacle to effective arm recoveries as opposed to improving the arm recoveries themselves. So if timing is off, the arms and the body aren't going to be in the right position relative to each other in order to allow swimmers to recover the arms effectively. They're not going to be able to drive into the stroke. They're not going to be able to get the arm up and out of the water. Swimmers need to kind of be on their side to start that recovery process, and they need to be able to switch back to the other side in order to drive the arm in. And so if swimmers are struggling with that concept, they're struggling with their timing, we need to work on that. So a lot of times swimmers will rotate earlier in the pull, and this helps them delay that rotation so that when they finish the pull, then they can snap over to the other side. Now that hand's going to be in a great position to swing that arm over the top, and that'll make it a lot easier for swimmers to recover the arm effectively, especially if they're struggling with that skill. And as with paddle cap backstroke, if swimmers have this locked down, their timing is pretty good. You don't necessarily need to worry about this. It's only when their timing is a problem, that's when you just need to step in. That's when you need to address it before you really start working on the arm recoveries, because you're just going to have a lot more problems. If the timing's off, it's going to be very difficult to improve the arm recoveries. So the idea here is to really focus on pulling all the way through and then rotating, and that's going to make it easier for them to learn how to shift the body and how to recover the arms straight. Because if the arm's not in the right position when they try to recover the arms, it's going to be more difficult. So as you can see here, the swimmer is still on their side when they try to begin the recovery of the arm, and that's going to make it a whole lot easier. If the swimmer rotates over, that arm's going to be down, and it's going to be way more difficult to recover the arm over the water. So the swimmer can get practice being in the right position, recovering the arm. It's going to be a lot easier. Of course, this timing is going to shift away. The delay is exaggerated here, but by feeling it in this position, feeling it in this way, it becomes a lot easier to execute what we actually want them to execute when they swim. Now it's time to actually start creating change with clock drill. So most swimmers have no idea where their arms are in space when they're recovering. They think it's straight, it's to the side, or it's to the other side, or it's bent, or it's something else. So clock drill helps them build that awareness and, more importantly, the control over what's happening. They know where their arm is and they can control it. They're going to be able to recover the arms more effectively. So what they're going to do is they're going to try to recover and enter at different times. So if their body is a clock, it's 12 o'clock straight up head, and then 11 and 1 to the side, and then 10 and 2, and then 9 and 3 pointing straight out to the side. So you're going to have them swim and try to enter at different times. You can have them change the time within the repetition. So start at 12, get down to 9 and 3, or vice versa, start at 9 and 3 and go to 12. You can change it by repetition. So they shift down each rep or they shift up each rep. You can have them enter at different times. So for instance, one arm's at 12, one arm's at 3. And then you can even have them change the time in different ways. So one arm's going from 12 to 3 and the other one is going from 3 to 12. As an example, you're having them try to control and change their arm recoveries to build awareness and help them learn how to control what they're doing. This is definitely an awareness drill, and you're helping them build the ability to determine what to do and how to do it. And the more effectively they can do that, the more likely it is they're going to find a better solution. They're going to figure out what feels best because they've been exposed to all these different options. And with your guidance, they're going to have a much better sense of what to do. And if you were to say everything clicks really well when you're between 11 and 12, they're going to have a much better understanding of what that is, and they're going to actually be able to make it happen because they know the difference between 12 and 11, 12 and 10, 12 and 9. By helping them gain control, we can help them execute a better skill. So if we watch here, you can see he's going to start off with pretty normal entries, and it's going to get wider and wider and wider as he goes through the lap and as he comes into the wall. And so you can make those differences, those changes, as dramatic as you want, as subtle as you want, and as many different ways as you want. So the key idea here is change. You're asking them to do something different, and you're asking them to do something very specific. And the more accurate they can be, the more controlled they can be, the more the skills are going to improve. To help swimmers learn this, we're going with head-up backstroke. So swimmers need to time the recovery and the rotation upon entry, and this should happen both aggressively and simultaneously. So we want swimmers to enter the water and then rotate at that time really fast so that they can get in a position to set up the stroke. So if swimmers are doing that passively, they're not going to be using the arm recovery to facilitate the rotation, and that's ultimately going to be impairing both timing and propulsion, and we want to use the recovery in order to make that happen. What's really important is that it needs to be aggressive, and the precision matters. They need to happen at more or less the same time in order to be most effective. Head-up backstroke is a great tool to facilitate this because by lifting the shoulders slightly, swimmers have to be a lot more aggressive with their rotation. They have to be a lot more aggressive in figuring out how to get the arms over the water and drive them into the water in order to make it happen. So if the timing's not effective, if they're not effective with driving the shoulders and they're not effective with driving the shoulders with the recovery, it's going to be really difficult to maintain any sort of flow, any sort of rhythm, and that's going to really throw them off. And that feedback, that feeling really terrible when they're moving through the water, helps them figure out how to get things rolling a little bit better and a little bit smoother. And so this is putting them in a position where it's much more likely for them to figure out how to make it happen. And then, of course, it's not actual backstroke, so you just pair that with regular backstroke, and they try to maintain that same flow, that same rhythm, that same timing, and then things tend to sync up really well. So it's a great way to help swimmers feel and encourage them to adopt a more aggressive strategy. And once they can do that and apply that to regular backstroke, they're going to be much better off. So you can see here, there's going to be an exaggerated shoulder drive, and that shoulder is going to drive into the water when the hand drives into the water. And so by having him sit up with the head a little bit, he's going to be driving those shoulders more. The timing is going to be a lot more effective. The timing is going to be better. And then it's just a matter of laying back into the water and doing it with regular backstroke swimming. So while these different strategies are a great starting point, we actually have to challenge them in order to get the changes that we want. So use different performance expectations. You can have them go at faster speeds. You can have them pick the stroke rate up. You can challenge them to execute in different situations. Stroke count's probably not going to be super effective here because we're not trying to get longer with this. We're just trying to execute with better precision, and the faster they have to go, the more difficult that's going to be. You can do it with really slow stroke rates, and that's also going to be a challenge because they're going to have to be really controlled in what they do. These challenges are particularly effective because it forces them to adapt in different situations, even if they're using the same strategy, the same drill. And so novelty helps build skill, variety helps build skill, and it doesn't have to be maximal. It's not about going at maximal speeds, but building can be really useful, descending can be really useful, not necessarily to all out, but just having them change speeds is going to have them feel different things. And the more they can feel, the more different ways they can feel it, the faster they're going to be able to go, and the more they're going to be able to improve their skills. Now, a bonus strategy you can use with some more advanced swimmers that are more fit and have kind of the control and the ability and the strength to manage this is you can use some light resistance in the hands. So you can either have them wear drag socks on their arms, or you can have them hold some coins in a closed fist. Both cases are going to give them a little bit more resistance in different ways. The coins will give them a little bit more weight in the hand. The drag socks will give them a little bit more resistance coming out of the water. And that extra resistance creates more awareness. So swimmers are going to be able to better feel how they're recovering the arms. That's going to help them get a more efficient arm path. And by giving them that resistance, swimmers are going to find the easiest way. Recovering with any sort of load is going to be difficult, and so they're going to feel, wow, that one was harder, that one was easier, and that's going to help them lock in and figure out which way is going to be most effective and fastest and easiest. All the strategies we've talked about so far, all the different drills, you can use resistance with those, and that's going to make them a little bit more effective, and not only just more effective, but it's going to provide a different stimulus which swimmers have to manage, which is going to be really effective at helping them improve. This is a simple set to help swimmers improve these skills, focusing more on the skill development as opposed to really generating some fitness. So we're going to start off with 425's paddle cap backstroke, build each 25, keeping the paddle on the head, keep everything locked in, set that skill up. Then they're going to go 475s that are 50 clock drill, and then 25 backstroke. They're going to get faster each one. The first 25 of the clock drill, they're going to start with the arms straight up overhead and then move them down to the sides. And then the second 25, they're going to start with the arms to the side and move them up straight overhead. That's going to challenge them to manage those different positions and create speed in those different positions as they descend down as well. The next piece, they're going to go 4 rounds. They're going to go 50 clock drill and then a 25 backstroke. They're going to be separate efforts. On the clock drill, the odds, they're going to go 25 left arm at 3, right arm at 12, and then 25 right arm at 9, left arm at 12, and then they'll flip that for the even ones. So they're experimenting and playing with different arm recoveries at the same time. Again, it's going to challenge their ability to be aware. It's going to challenge their ability to control things. And the more they can do that, the more effective they're going to be at knowing what to do, knowing how to do it, and then making it happen. Next set is more of an endurance set. They're going to go 25 of the drill and then 100 backstroke. The 100 backstroke, they got to get faster within each round without taking more strokes. And then by round, they can get one more stroke per 25, and they got to go faster as well. On the drills, we're going to do them a little bit different each time. For the first 25, they're going to do clock drills, start off straight overhead, and then go down to the side. The second one's head up backstroke, driving the arms a little bit. The third one is clock drill again, start off to the side, go vertical overhead. The fourth one is going to be head up again, driving the shoulders. And then the fifth one, they're going to go straight overhead, down to the side, straight overhead, all within the same 25. And so those drills are all with some solid effort, or their build is strong. They're going to set up that 100, and then swimmers are going to try to execute the same way over the course of that 100. Again, each round's trying to get a little bit better. They're trying to get better within each round. And each time they do those 25s, they get a little bit of reminder of what they need to do, how they need to execute it, all without disrupting the fitness that they're generating, the fitness that they're developing by doing all those solid hundreds. Last set is more of a speed set. They're going to go 3 rounds through this. They're going to go 25 clock drill, 25 head up, 25 clock drill, 25 head up, 25 clock drill, 25 head up, and then 25 clock drill. So the clock drills, they're going to start off to the side, and they're going to get a little bit more vertical until they're straight up overhead on that last 25 clock drill. Then they're going to alternate that with head up backstroke. So they're going to be really focused on driving the shoulders, being really aggressive with the arm recoveries there. And they're going to focus on the position of the arm recoveries during the clock drill. And then they're going to finish off every round with a 25 backstroke fast. And the first 7 repetitions of each round, so all the drill stuff, round 1, build to fast. Round 2, they're going to minimize stroke count and time. And round 3, they're all fast. So they're challenging the drills in different ways with different types of speed and they're challenging the drills in different ways, both in terms of position and then also the timing and the aggressiveness of it. Then they're going to put it all together with that 25 backstroke fast and see if they can make it happen. So we're developing speed, but we're doing it with a specific intention, a specific focus on improving the arm recoveries and really getting that locked in. And that's going to allow swimmers to execute that skill when they're trying to go fast, which is what really matters. If you want to know what swimmers need to do with the arms once they get in the water and it's time to create a ton of propulsion, check out the video below.